hello, 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 hello. Welcome. It is Sunday. It is Warhammer Sunday. It's that time of the week when I do my Warhammer shizzle. And you guys hang out in the live stream and talk nonsense, as I talk nonsense for 3 hours. Hello, welcome. Hope you can all see me and hear me okay. Everything looks okay at my end, so I'm assuming it does at yours. Welcome. If you don't know what this is, over weekend, when I'm normally doing other stuff during the week, on the weekend I tend to work normally on my Warhammer army, the unending forces of the Holy Contrivance. However, for the last couple of months I haven't been, because I've been trying to catch up on building all the Warhammer Conquest figures, and for the last month or so I've not been doing that because I've been working on this dude that I got from my local Warhammer store anniversary. It's the Funko Pop Space Marine that I am painting as an angry marine. Yes, so we'll cracking on with that in a bit. But welcome. Basically I'll sit here and do some work and waffle on for 3 hours, and you guys just talk amongst yourselves in chat. If you are watching this, it is all about being in the live chat here. I'll give some stickers away later on, but it's all about having a good time with these guys here, there, and maybe just having me on in the background. So do come along. If you're watching this and you're not on the YouTube page and you want to join in the live chat, just hit the little YouTube icon that's down here in the bottom right hand corner of the page somewhere, wherever I'm pointing. I don't know, I can't see where the corner is. Down there somewhere, the little YouTube icon on the video player, click on that. It'll take you to the YouTube page where you can join in the live chat, and it's worth doing it. Like I said, good group of people in there, awesome people, and you might win some stickers. So yes, good idea. If you're watching this though, do come along into the live chat. Now, as always, if you have got access to live chat and you're watching, I've got my chat here on my iPad in front of me, but if you want to get my attention, ask me something or whatever you need to do, get my attention, talk to me, do put your comment in big fat capital letters. Have a chance of seeing it then when I occasionally look up. If you want to really get my attention though, or even if you want to read, hang on, I forgot something, didn't I? Hang on. I forgot Guthorm again, didn't I? I always forget Guthorm. There we go. Stay there, Guthorm. Guard my Uniposca pens. If you really want to get my attention, you can do a super chat, which is a little dollar symbol. It's the bottom of the chat window. It's down here somewhere under the. It's in the chat, so it's over there somewhere, in your YouTube player. It's up in the chat, bottom of the chat window. Little dollar symbol. That puts your comment in a coloured box on the screen, and also puts a little animation up here in the top corner and makes a noise. So I have no chance of missing your comments. If you really want to get my attention, you can do that. And of course, we do have our ongoing stream boss battle. You can see the colour bar up here. That's our current stream boss's health. It's not me, it says me, but that's because I messed it up. It's actually Simon Reynolds, or Kevin as we know him, our much loved Golden Demon winning member of the community, who is the current stream boss. And basically, if you Paul at Team Inept says the best way to get his attention is to text him. Shut up, I can turn my phone off. But yes, it is. Yes, because he's the current stream boss. If you want to basically have a chance at winning 200 to 500 quid's worth of goodies, you want to start trying to knock the stream boss down off his throne. How do you do it? You do super chats, like I said a minute ago, the little dollar symbol in the chat window, or you can put tips through the tip jar, which is streamlabs.com/modelmakingguru. And every time you put a tip or a super chat through, depending on how much you put in and put through the super chat or the tip, that's how much you'll take off a certain amount of Kevin's health. And whoever gets him to 0 wins all the money raised through the tips and the super chats. Kevin won. When he won, it was 499 quid. And what happens is I basically say, here's how much you've won. You can spend that at Games Workshop, you can spend that at Forge World, or if you're in the EU or the UK, you can spend it at my channel supporters, Goblin Gaming. And I'll basically order stuff for you and have it sent out to you. So you just tell me what you want and I order it. So get your tips and super chats coming through if you want to get Kevin down. I'm not muted, Paul. Stop it. I can see the little light on my microphone. Thank you. Yes, if you want to get putting your tips and super chats through, see if you can get Kev. He's been on there for months now, and it's getting boring with him on there. We need a new challenger, so a new challenger must appear. So there you go. So yes, that's what we're going to be doing today, is cracking on with this dude. Before I do need to remind you, of course, that this channel and this show is supported by my very, very good friends at Goblin Gaming, your one-stop shop for all your tabletop model making and gaming needs. There's an address in the description below this video. There's a link down there. Use that link for 2 reasons. One, you can save up to 20% off Games Workshop, Malifaux and Conflict 47, as well as lots of other things, and massive savings on everything else they have in stock. But also, if you use the link that's down there and not just the normal website link, it tells them that you've come from me. It tells them that I've referred you, and I get a little bit of commission. So if you want to help support this channel, you can do. Just use the Goblin Gaming link down there and get yourself ordering some goodness at 20% off, up to 20%. But especially Games Workshop, everything is 20% off. There you go. Tabletop. Yeah, Diz Space Ham says, did it just say tabletop? Yes, I kind of mispronounced it. Tabletop. And it's not just Warhammer they do loads of stuff. They do card games, they do like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, and loads of other actual board-based table games, all D&D and all that kind of stuff. And if you're local to the area, they have D&D nights and Warhammer nights, and they've got loads of tables you can play on. And they've got a modelling area with spray booths and all kinds of stuff. It's a good place to go and hang out. And that's Goblin Game. And of course, the channel is also sponsored by emodels.co.uk, your one-stop shop for all your traditional model making needs. There's a link in the description below for those guys as well. Now, let's have a look at chat before we get going. I've got, of course, my enormous mug of coffee happiness. That's the correct way to drink coffee. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're an idiot. So have a quick look at chat. Now, I know Pascal was in chat first because Pascal was in chat before I'd even set the stream up. I went to set the stream up and there was Pascal saying, morning. Morning, Pascal. And so Pascal was the first in, but I only start from a little earlier. So Pascal saying he's been sick for 3 days, but today's a bit better. So I hope you get better soon, Pascal. Sorry to hear you've been poorly ill. I'm going to put a Guthorm there. Move this around a bit so he's just kind of standing in the middle of nowhere at the minute on my board, which is a bit weird. I need to... I don't know, mount him on something, but you can see his foot. His foot's there. You can't see his face, but can I put him there? No, because he's wearing me. I've got nowhere to put him where he'll be on camera. Poor Guthorm, he's been abandoned. Can I move him that way? No, he's too high up. Oh well, I know he's there. Right, so yes, have a quick look at chat. Pascal is in. Johnny Blythe, 11:33 here in Brisbane. Everyone good, I hope, says Johnny. Welcome, Johnny. Hope you're having some good weather in Brizzy there. Cynical Steve popped in. He said, a quick look as I'm off to the flicks to see Joker. Have a good stream, Fox. Enjoy the movie, Cynical Steve. I've not seen it. I'll watch it when it comes onto Amazon Prime or movies or whatever. I haven't been in the cinema in years. It's probably because it's full of like minions and hoi polloi. I don't like to go in the cinema full of peons. Also, it's not worth the money. I can just watch it online. I don't get the whole thing. If you know. I don't really... It's been a long time since I've enjoyed being in the cinema, because now it's just like, you know what? I'm getting half an hour trailers. I need to go for a wee halfway through, and it's a mile to the toilet. The food costs a fortune. I'll just watch it. I'll just wait a month or two and watch it on telly. Much easier. Who else have we got in? Just Django is in, or rather, Django is in. See, I got it right this time. Is Fox trying out some new tunes for the stream, says Mordraka. Hey, Mordraka. No, I've just got two alternative sort of pre-rolls, and that was one of them. I usually do one or the other. Pascal is apparently eating some crude noten. They're tiny small cookies with gingerbread spices, and they're eating a lot around before the 5th of December here in the Netherlands. And like I say in the comments, 5th of December is a very important date. It's a very, very important date. Write it down. Write that down. Dad is in, of course. Dad is one of my lovely mods, as is Team Inept and Chris at Gross Models. They're all in. They're all lovely people. They're soft and squishy, and they'll look after you and mother you and make sure they'll be like a mother hen and make sure you're safe and protected in chat. But if you cross them, they will burn you alive in a flame of death. They will just burn you alive and roast your remains and then eat them and then poop you out and then snap you in half and then kill you. If it's possible not to do it in all that order. I'll just stop. I don't know where I was going with that. It just kind of tumbled out of control. Yeah, they're really nice. They look after your mods and they'll look after you. We have Cynical Steve. We've done Cynical Steve because I've just read that already. Beyond Hope is in. I hate orcs, just saying, even though I'm having to build some for Warcry Warband. Grumble. We have Welcome Beyond. We have Candy Grandfamongo is in. Greetings, Dad, Chris, and everyone else who's not Dad or Chris. We have... Who else do we have? Let's have a look. Me, apparently. Ray Aquilina from Malta is in. Good evening, Ray. Welcome. Eric Graham is in. Welcome, Eric. Nim is in. Welcome, Nim. Although I think I've missed half a conversation there, because Nim just says, yeah, I mean, if you compare Santa to Odin, they share the same things in common, plus the Norse Wild Hunt. I think they're talking about the origins of something. Santa Claus, I think. I don't quite know why. Candy Grandfamongo says, my favourite part of last week was learning about Penguin Cafe Orchestra. Thanks. Yes. If you didn't do this, when you finish watching the show, go and look up Penguin Cafe Orchestra and buy all their albums, apart from maybe the first one, which is a bit avant-garde. You might not like the first one. What was the first one called? I can't remember what the first one was called. It's got a song called Milk. Yeah, and the first one maybe not, but music from the Penguin Cafe and onwards. Oh, just really go and listen to them. Go and listen to them. We have, who else has come in? We have Wayne Haywood is in. Welcome, Wayne. Infested Neptune. Been a while since I last saw a stream. Welcome, Infested Neptune. Welcome back, I should say. The Print Guru is in. Welcome, The Print Guru. Space Hamster ZH, as we know, is in because we mentioned Space Hamster earlier on. We have Tyrone Key. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Tyrone. Jeff Longman is in. Greetings, fellow nerds. Greetings, fellow nerds. Nerd! I did see that Dave from wow, I can't get my words out. Dave from Butcher That Model, I think, was in. I'm sure I saw Dave at some point somewhere. Maybe it's not on this chat transcript. Maybe it's on the PC, but I'm sure I saw Dave. But welcome, Dave, if you're in. I think you are. I don't like the cinema because I'm a mardy middle-aged man, says Team Inept. No, I just don't like the Great Unwashed. I took donuts to my local Warhamster because I was collecting Larissa's Shadow from Gladiators. Lee was very grateful, says Paul at Team Inept. Larissa's Shadow from Gladiators, I like that. Ghost Lyle is in. I have appeared. Pineapple, 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 says Ghost Lyle. Frankie goes to Hobbywood. I've missed a lot of chat here. Mark 3Bs, afternoon, ladies and Jelly-Spoons. Welcome, Mark 3Bs. Who else have I missed? Jordan Capuano. Chat jumped. Tyrone Key, we've done. I think I'm up to date now. There we go. So I think we're up to date. So that's everybody, I think. Dave's putting a tank in a tank, says Dad. Also, maybe I didn't see Dave then. Dad does, of course, without me prompting for once, he does, of course, ask the most important question of this show, and that is, of course, what's on your bench and what's in your belly? What are you working on right now? And what have you either had for your dinner or what are you going to have for your dinner? Now, I've had some lunch today, unusually for me. I don't normally do lunch because I don't normally get an appetite till dinner time. But the other day I made some chili dogs, which were chili dogs and Swedish meatballs. Well, chili dogs with Swedish meatballs. And I had some leftover tiger loaf buns and I had some leftover meatballs. So I had a meatball sandwich, I suppose, for lunch. A big long tiger roll, that long, and I just filled it with meatballs and some mayonnaise and tomato sauce and some other bits and bobs. That's what I had for my lunch. Very nice, very nice. The beauty was we had these tiger rolls that were like this long, but the hot dogs were that long, so I had to have 2 hot dogs in each chili dog and then put the chili on top and then meatballs. Oh yes. There was fatness on the day that I made the chili dogs. I had many of them, many. Right, so while you're all going through and telling me what you're making and what you've had for your dinner, what you're going to have, I've not seen. I'll come back to that train of thought. It just suddenly stopped halfway through. Yes. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. No, my brain really has just. I'll just have a swig of coffee because my brain just thought of 3 different things and then instantly forgot them all. Brilliant. I've not seen Jamie Bone in chat, but I guess he's going to say roast chicken dinner. little bit coffee throat today. Can't remember what I was going to say. I will be. Oh, if you are the person that won the blueprint the other day, I forgot who. Was it Eric? Was it you, Eric? I will be sending that out tomorrow, so that should be on its way to you tomorrow. Right, I was going to say about 3 different things, and my brain instantly forgot what all of them were. So basically, let's just get on with some work. Now you can see here, I'm going to put some gloves on. Which means as soon as I put some gloves on, I'll start getting the sniffly runny nose, and it'll be a living hell. So I'm going to blow my nose now in advance, or just kind of wipe my nose, because this happens every time I turn the lights on. There we go. Right, so yes, go on, listen to some Penguin Cafe. It will enrich your life. Penguin Cafe, the guy that created Penguin Cafe, Simon, whose name I've forgotten, Simon surname. I don't believe he ever had a negative thought in his entire life, because everything about Penguin Cafe is happy. Even the sad tunes are happy. And you're missing out on such tunes as Pythagoras' Trousers or Music for a Found Harmonium. And of course, the perennial classic, especially if you're Australian and you've seen the film Malcolm from all those years ago, is a Telephone and Rubber Band. I have seen Malcolm many, many years ago. I seem to remember it was quite a good film, primarily because it had Penguin Cafe music in it. Right, so yes, I've done some work off camera. I've done some more ready touchy up bits. We were doing some layering on the red last week. I have also drawn the yellow circle for the logo on his arm, and I have decided to make him a captain. So I've put a red circle on his forehead. You'll see why in a bit. Today, I want to get to the point where we... Space Time says, Jesus, I can't tip on this tablet. Yeah, you can't. You need to get yourself, if you're on an iPad, you need to get yourself a nice iPad keyboard. Now, this isn't the Apple one that costs $180. This is the knockoff on Amazon that cost me 15 quid, and it's brilliant. You'll still do typos left, right, and centre, because autocorrect will always trip you up. I need to clear my throat. Hang on a second. I'm going to turn the microphone off for a second while I... Give me a sec. Oh, coughing like it's a courtroom. Order, order. Silence in court. Right, you can see how this day is going to go. So yes, I painted the circle there, and I've painted the circle there. I touched up some of the red and did some little bits and bobs. I discovered to my horror that I didn't clean up the seam lines on the back of the feet, and somehow I haven't even noticed that till just this morning. Brilliant. Well done, Fox. I added some more null oil shading to the... Where's my pointy stick? To the recess in the gun casing here. And also... Am I in focus? I think I'm in focus. Tell me if I'm in focus or not. And also I put in a bit of null oil in the little sort of the bit here where the shell comes out, and also this recess and some of these recesses because they're a bit muted. So what we're going to do today, I'm hoping to get to the point of doing the chipping. So what I will need to do first, before we do the chipping, I need to make sure I've painted everything that will be on the painted surface. Now, I've always said this before about weathering. Remember, if you're painting something and you're wanting to do weathering that involves paint chipping, you have to think of the logical progress. You've got metal surface, you've got primer, you've got paint on top. This if it was a real thing, like a real tank or arm or whatever, you'd have metal, then you'd have the primer, and then you'd have the paint on top. Any markings would also be paint, or they might be vinyl stickers in real life, you never know. And then that would chip back. So this is why I'm going to do any markings first, like these little insignia, and then I'll do the paint chipping, because these will be painted onto the armour, and then the paint will chip away. So I will do that. So the first thing we need to do is the scary stuff, and that is doing some ink outlining on these logos, because these are both going to be the shouty. They're not smiley faces, but they're kind of smiley faces. So what we're going to need for this is we're going to need, first of all, something over here, a pill container. All will become clear. So we need a pill container. You'll see a lot more of this when I get round to doing the inking on George's Master Grade Sazabi, Ver Car, Ver Shanghai Dragons, Ver Borderlands. And then we're going to need to clean that out, because it's probably got loads of dust in it. It's been sat there for a while. And then we are going to need... I'm going to have to find that brush I'm going to hold. We're going to need the ink. And then we're going to need a very, very fine brush. And this is where I've basically got to paint an outline of a circle. This is going to go one of two ways. It's going to look absolutely fantastic, or it's going to look like absolute biblical ass, and I'll have to do lots of cleanup afterwards. So I don't know yet. So I have my Winsor & Newton Series 7. I've got a triple aught, and I've got a... Where's it gone? Where's it gone? I've got a double aught somewhere. Somewhere. It's vanished on me. Somewhere I do have a double aught. There it is. Double O. I don't know why I say triple aught. It just sounds better when it sounds... One of the few times saying the American version says. Kenneth's in. How you feeling, Dad? Says Kenneth. Hey, Kenneth. Welcome, dude. I don't know if it's what time it is in there. Probably morning, I would guess. So what we're going to do is we are going to try this outlining. Now I'm going to have to probably go a bit quiet when I do this, and I might be sticking my tongue out, and I will say now, I fully expect to completely bollocks it up. So don't panic if I do. I need some blue tack to put that on, just so I've got a little reservoir for the ink. It's quite nifty, like you see. And I'm going to just have a little bit. I don't need a lot of ink, just a small amount. I did say that, Paul. Yes. 3 drops of ink. That's all I need. This is proper Artists India ink. It's Dr. Martin's Black Star Waterproof India ink, matte. It's not that matte, it's quite shiny. Any India ink will do, any artist's India ink. The reason I'm using ink is because it's just cool, basically. Also, ink is 1 billion times denser pigment-wise than paint. If you want to paint very fine details with black paint, what you need to do is not use paint at all and instead use ink, because paint is just it's too transparent. Right, so this is where it's going to get a feeling. So I may go quiet here, but basically I need to put an outline around this. Oh, I'll just show you. I'll remind you what we're doing, in case you're not sure what we're actually doing here. We're doing an angry marine, which is this. Excuse me. And you can see here he's got various things on his armour, like certain letterings and words that I won't say out loud. And also the non-smiley face on his pauldron, and I don't know if you can see, you can't see the mouse, but on the helmets here on the far left, it's got the angry captain with the little non-smiley face on his helmet, which I decided to add. I haven't put a non-smiley face on his chest because I wasn't going to do any sculpting and remodelling of this. It's vinyl, and vinyl is made of ass. So yes. So what we need to do first of all is, now you see, I do have as well, I'm thinking now, I have got myself some Posca paint pens, which are also, I see I can do a fine, I don't know, I'm going to do the outline with I can do a finer line with the brush. When it comes to doing the eyes, I'll use the paint pens. So what we're going to do, I've got my very fine triple up brush, I'm going to take the tiniest amount of ink. Yeah, so not only is ink massively, massively denser pigment-wise than paint, it's also thinner, much thinner, and it flows beautifully. So I may go quiet here for a bit. Let's make sure you can see. I may go a bit quiet. I'm sure I will mess this up. I'm sure I will. I can always correct it later. So bear with me while I go quiet and do this. It's okay to be a little bit cartoony. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. A little bit cartoony is fine. Not enough ink on there. More ink, not enough. There we go. I'm taking most of the ink that I get off on a piece of tissue. And I really am just using the very tip of the brush. The majority of that ink is coming back off, and I'm making it into a point on the tissue. The majority of it's coming back off on the tissue, so. There's really no way to brush on this kind of fine outlining without getting wobbles. When I do the outlining on George's Master Grade Cesabe, which will be in a Borderlands style, that will have lots of edges and things for me to work off, which will be much easier. This is smooth. If you're doing like a edge highlighting effect, like an outlining effect, like a comic book, it's a lot easier because you've got edges to work off. Where here, I'm just floating about in open space here. So, I'm not worried if it's not 100% perfect, because we are going to do chipping. And if absolutely necessary, I can cover up some sins with paint chips. Now the trick here is, I'm trying to make sure as much as possible that I'm only ever pulling the brush downwards, because that's when you have the most control, is when you're pulling a brush down. And I'm trying to adjust the pressure so I get... remember before when I've said that you can use the width of the brush, you can press it down a little bit harder to get a wider brush splay, and that's how you can make a line go thicker. I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to control the pressure so that all I have to do is do this with my fingers to move it. I'm not doing this, I'm not moving that, I'm just literally going like that, and I'm using the thickness of the brush to draw the curve. And I'm going over it a couple of times because that way I can get a thicker line. If you try and do one big thick line straight away, you'll screw it up. The one thing I've learned over many years of doing comic book art is to start with a thin outline and build it up. If you remember, I've said before, when I used to do comic book art, I would do a very faint outline with a graphic pen, then I'd do all the watercolouring, and then I'd go back with brushes and ink to build up the outlines. And that's why when you see some comic book art and it's proper, not modern stuff that's all digital and everything's nice and crisp, when you go and look at proper comic book art where the artist has painted it with a brush, you know, he's done the outlining with a brush or a pen nib, and he's done the colouring with, or whoever's done the colouring has used a brush and watercolour, you'll see that thing where the line goes thick and then thin, like a, and you get like a fat bit and a thin bit. That's just down to pressure, the pressure they've applied. And with experience, you get to feel the brush and the pressure. You get a knack for it, and it just becomes second nature. Right, so there we have a black outline. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see a bit better, because you're not really seeing this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. Now, it's not going to be as good quality. It's going to kill the quality a bit if I zoom in. Just so you can see what I'm doing. Hang on. You can see there we've got a bit of a black outline. It's a bit rough and ready. It's not perfect. But the first one, when I did the first thin outline, that was rough and wobbly. But then by going over it a couple of times, you just build up that outline a bit. Now there's a little bit of a splodge there on the bottom, but I'll tidy it up with either some red paint later on, or a paint chip. Now keep in mind as well, while you're looking at this, it looks like yellow and red. I'm just looking on the screen. It looks like bright red and kind of flat yellow. In reality, the red isn't quite that. I've not been able to get the colour balance. I'm going to try now. I've not been able to get the colour balance right at all. So you're seeing this really bright, overexposed red, which I can't do anything about. It's not actually that bright. It's possibly more like that a bit, but then that kills the yellow. So it's not quite that bright red, and it's not quite that flat yellow. It's all the various shades. When I'm finished this, I will put proper pictures up for you. But yeah, it's not quite as bright yellow and red as that. It looks a bit rubbish, but you're looking at a rubbish webcam picture, so there you go. Simon Reynolds is late. He's just missed me. Si, you've just missed me drawing, brushing an ink circle. How's that for awesomeness? Yeah, I'm shutting up now. Now I've got to do the same again on this little fella here, on his head bonds. So, and this is even smaller. So I'll make sure I'm in shot, which is there. And I may have to go even more quiet for this one. Try and make sure I'm doing it down towards myself. There we go. Now if you remember, we had some issues with the paint on this, where the paint does have a certain texture to it. So it's a little bit wibbly wobbly. But it's not too bad. So we'll just see how we're going. So what I'm doing, like I said, I'm getting some ink on the brush, and then I'm touching the brush to some kitchen tissue. I'm running it along like that to get the excess ink off, and to also maintain the point. Because like I say, because it's ink, it is massively thinner. It's a bit, in thickness, it's a bit like the Vallejo metal colour paints. It's that kind of thin. It's almost like enamel thinness. It's wonderful stuff, but it is massively opaque compared to acrylic paints. So, you know, 2 coats of acrylic paint would look like this, basically, with like 1 coat of ink. It's a lot more opaque. So I'm going to go over again. Now, because it's not a smooth, even surface on this one, we are getting a bit of a softer edge to it, which is a bit disappointing. But there isn't really a great deal I can do about that. Other than, like I said before, do some chipping and stuff later on. We shall see how it goes. Yeah, a few little splobs there. See, I went sideways then with the brush and it kind of went a bit wonky, so that'll learn me. So it's not as much fun on this particular paint surface because it's not a flat surface. So it looks a bit fluffy around the edges, which is a bit rubbish. But we'll live. It's not the end of the world. Not done as neatly on this one. Yeah, it looks it's a bit fuzzy around the edges because of the uneven texture. But never mind, we'll live. We'll get round it somehow. We'll figure something out. Okay, so I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Basically, because the ink is thinner, it runs between any little raised texture details. And therefore you get little raised bits that stick up and are still yellow coloured, and that's why you seem to have a sort of uneven edge. But no biggie. I just look at, we can maybe go around with some yellow paint to tidy it up, but there's nothing I can do about it because the surface is textured, because it was dry brush, because the surface is textured like that. The ink goes into the recesses and leaves the raised bits sticking up, and then it tends to capillary action out a bit. Whereas on the pauldron, the paint is nice and smooth on there, so you don't notice it. Simon Reynolds says, confused squig. David's back. Yeah, Paul's back. Don't have to heckle my own now. David butchered that model. Welcome, Dave. Why does the Angry Marine have a bindi? Because he's going to be a captain. I'll show you. Look. Ready? Where's the... I've lost the thing. There. That was the wrong thing then, wasn't it? There you see, look at the captain on the left-hand side, the leftmost one. She's got a smiley face, although it's not smiley on there. There you go, you see. Ooh, excuse me, hello. Ooh, chili dogs. Ooh, hello. I mean, meatball, hang on, coffee. Meatball sandwiches. Right, so, there we go. Why does he have a bindi? Yes. So, yeah, I'm not 100% pleased with that because it's fuzzy around the edges, but there's nothing really I can do because it's a rough surface. I'll go over with some paint in a bit and see if I can make it less obvious. So let's go back now. What we want to do is we want to put in, it's quite a simple logo. It's got an eyebrow, a nasty unhappy face and two eyes. So what we're going to do first is the eyebrow. I will come and have a look at the chat in a bit. I need to get this bit done first. So same brush. I'm going to kind of guesstimate where the middle is. And just roughly ink in a line, and then here, where's the best way to do this? Roughly ink in a line. Doesn't need to be perfect. I'm going to build it up. There's only it's a bit rough and wobbly there, but that's fine because we're going to build it up. Remember I said start with the thin line first and make your way up. Hope this is on camera for you. No, almost it wasn't. Now these are kind of a little bit wedgy shaped. And they do go outside. It's a difficult one, this one. They do go outside the circle. Go. Wow, I'll tell you what, I always doubted I'd ever be able to paint figures on telly like this, and here's me free-handing symbols. It's like, geez. And these are things I thought I'd never do. I need to remind myself what this thing looks like. Hang on. Let me, on my iPad here, I've got the image up on the relevant image. No, that's the wrong one. That's a picture. That's an Elite Dangerous screenshot. Didn't want that. There we go. Okay, I could have actually made it a bit more pointy down, a bit more V-shaped, but it'll do for now. It'll do. It's near enough. It's close enough. That'll do, donkey, that'll do. So you can see now, just like literally, that's one thin line and one thick line. And I've turned the iPad off so I can't see the chat now. You spoon. And hang on a minute. Oh, there we go. Of course, it can't read my fingerprint. I had to put the code in there because it won't read my thumbprint. Fox, you're never organised, are you? Right, so yes. So yeah, two quick pass. Thin line built up in a thick line, and I've now got this nice bold black eyebrow pattern. If you'd done that with black paint, that would take a lot more coats, and you'd probably make a bigger mess of it, because black paint is nowhere near as opaque. And it's obtuse then, not obtuse. Opaque is the word I'm looking for. But the trick is you want a very fine brush and a very good ink. And it's handy for anything, really. Inks are handy for anything where, you know, you want to do a bold, stark black. I wouldn't paint a whole thing in inks, but, you know. So now we've got the frowny smile, the not smile. Which I'm going to do in 2 halves. Probably going to look a bit rubbish, but hey, it's going to be near enough. There we go. Now I made a bit of a splidge there, so what I can do, I can recover that by stylising it and making one side fatter than the other, so it looks like it's meant to look that way, because it's supposed to look like they've just painted it on themselves. So you might not see this, but I'm going to widen that off. Just so it looks a bit more stylised, a bit more like it's meant to be that shape. Now I will be honest and tell you, it's not something you're going to be able to do overnight straight away. So it looks like what this bit here is fatter now than this bit and a bit offset, but that's fine. It just looks stylised. Yeah, painting like lining like this with a brush, it's not something you're going to do overnight and straight away without any experience. I've been doing this for years on paper, so I mean it's been a long time since I've done it, but I was for very many years doing this. Other thing, by the way, getting the ink off the brush is going to take a lot of cleaning. I'll show you what I was doing though when I was saying about dipping it in the ink. What I'll do is I'll get it in the ink. Where is the ink? There's the ink. So I'll get it in the ink, get some ink on there. I'm always pulling the brush. I'm not stabbing the brush in, I'm pulling it along. Get some ink on, and then twist the brush, take off the excess, and there you are, you're ready. That's enough then to go with an outline. Now you will take a lot of cleaning to get it out, because you'll have lots of ink in there, so make sure you clean your brush thoroughly afterwards. But yeah, you're not going to be able to do this overnight. If you've never done it before, you're not going to suddenly be able to pick up a brush and do ink outlining. It's not massively different from using a paint, but you'll find it's a lot easier because you literally are doing 1 or 2 coats. You're not having to do lots and lots of coats of paint. Well, hang on, let me just make sure the chat's up to date. Now I've got the same thing to do on the head, but smaller. Yeah, good luck with that. So we do the same thing on the head. Make sure I'm zoomed in. There we go. I'll put the ink there. So we'll try and we'll make the one on here, the one on his head, a bit more pointy, because it's supposed to be a bit more pointy. I don't know who came up with the Angry Marines, but it's just it's a goddamn moment of genius. If you get a chance, go onto 1D4chan and read the blurb about Angry Marines. And they've got some little made up stories and stuff, fanfic as well. It's just hilarious. Now what I might say about the texture on here, where you've got the rough texture, is in my head canon, perhaps this texture's supposed to be there. It's like a rough hewn metal, like more of an iron type metal. So therefore when the Angry Marine paints on, or gets his serf to paint the insignia on, of course, he's himself painting it over a rough metal. And that's why it looks rough. There we go, that's better. Yes, I never thought I'd actually be freehanding on camera. Like I say, I never thought. I mean, I can't imagine being able to paint a figure because he's so small. But this is kind of cool. Now there are some little splobs I'll have to touch up. So what's next? Next, we need to do the eyes. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a cheat for the eyes and hope it works and not like a complete spoon. I have in my hand a piece of paper. I must advise you that at this time, no such undertaking has been received. Now, in my hand, I have a piece that's a World War II historical reference. I've got some Posca paint pens. These are basically acrylic paint in pen format. They're not markers. Their paint is literally acrylic paint, and they're brilliant. And I'm going to do a get out of jail cheat. So for this, I'm going to very quickly. Hang on. There we go. What a quick look to remind myself. Dead simple. Make sure there's not a lot of paint in the... First thing you want to do with the Posca paint pen is make sure there's not a lot of paint in there in the reservoir, because it'll go and you'll have a mess. And then all we need to do is dead simple. A little bit of that. And the reason I'm using these is because I've still made a mess of it. Oh well, no. Still messed it up. Is because it's actually easier to do circles and things with a pen than it is with a brush. Now I did mess that one up, so I might have to go back and tidy that up in a bit. It's got a bit wonky there. It's a bit wonky donkey. Yeah, I can tidy that up. And we'll do the same on Bonds. Doesn't need to be quite as big on there, so I've got less chance of screwing it up. There we go. Nice and simple on the head. Little black dots, maybe a little bit bigger. There we go. So I'll need to go up and tidy that one. It's just a bit of yellow paint around that will tidy it up nicely. And I tied up the edges of the frowny face as well, but that'll be fine. So what I need to do now is refer to my reference material. There, and okay, right. So what I need to do is go back to the chat. So it's here. Right. So what we need is on this knee down here. We need. I could do it with the brush. I don't know. Should I do it with the pen or with the brush? I'll do it with the pen. Can I get? I don't know if I can get a pen in there. I'll do it on here. I'll do it with the pen. I'm going to have to write a rude word, so look away if you're easily offended. Now this is obviously handwritten by the Marine, so it doesn't matter if I'm a bit ropey with this. Again, I can go back and tidy up later. Now I'm not actually putting any pressure on here, because the thing with these is that these pens, they are brilliant, and it's not a Sharpie, it literally is acrylic paint, but if you press down too hard, the nib can jump and skit it, and it goes and puts little tiny splats of paint. So you've got to be really careful. You can't just press down like a marker pen. You've got to be a little bit careful. Hello, what was that? Frank Julian subscribed. I have to say, by the way, a couple of days ago, I think it was, I got a subscriber called Levitating Potato. I like that name. Welcome, Frank. So there we go. going to put an exclamation mark on that. I don't know if there is one, but I'm putting one anyway. So there's a rude word on there. Yes. I'll see if I can get the pen in here. I should be able to. And I'll do that with a brush. It's a bit risky. But I'll do this one with the pen. I can't quite get the brush in there either. So we've got that on there. A little bit of tidy up needed. No biggie. I've got to tidy up some of the yellow. And then on this guy, he needs to say... What does he need to say on his head? Oh, same again. Saying the same thing, which I will not read. Now this is where it's going to get tricksy now, because I've got to write with this pen on this rough surface, and it's got a potential for the nib to go and make little splats. So I've got to be careful now. It's got to be small. I can't afford to press down at all. And I can't afford to go up with the pen. If I'm going down with the pen, I've got control of it. If I then do like a U shape and then go up, that's where the nib can go and catch on the surface. And that's where you've got to be really careful. So there we go. So now I've got a rude thing. And it is supposed to be written on by the guy, so it's not supposed to be symmetrical or all that kind of stuff. So there we go. That's that. I think that's... I've got the markings on the knee, so I'll do those now. I don't think there's any other markings. I shall refer to the leg end. Hang on. Doodle-doo, doodle-doo. They've got the thing on the head and the word. They've got pauldrons. Okay, it does say on the legs, your face here, but unfortunately, with the best will in the world, I'm going to struggle to get anything on the leg, because the legs are too damn small. I can try on the foot. I could just go for it. If it goes wrong, I can paint over it. I've got to get 3 words on there. That's going to be tricky. I might do it on this foot because it's easier. Your face. Here. There we go. Your face here. It's not perfect, but it's going to get covered in dirt and mud anyway, that bit. I'll just tidy that line. There's always one little bit that doesn't quite work. I can tidy that with a little bit of paint, so I'm going to hairdryer it quickly, because again it is acrylic paint. Okay, so what I want to do now is, that is going to get covered with dust and dirt and weathering, so I'm not too fussed that I made a bit of a splub. I'm going to very quickly tidy up that eye, and for that we're going to use, God help me, Uriel Yellow first of all. Uriel Yellow. Where did I get those pens, Fox? Says Eon's Car. Just go on to Amazon and look for... Hang on, I'll type them in. I'll type it into chat for you. Hang on. Look for... In fact, even better than that, you don't need to. If you go into the description below my video, there's a link to my Amazon store. They're in there, I think. They are Uniposca paint pens. I put it in chat. If I remember rightly, I did put a selection of them in my Amazon store. So if you're in the UK or the EU, if you're in the UK, go to my Amazon store and order them through there, because it helps out this channel. I make a little bit of income off that. If you're not, you can just go to Amazon and do a search for Uniposca paint pens. They do quite a big selection. Not billions of them. Oh, I know what I need to do. Hang on. I can't do that yet because I've got to do a little bit more ink. I've got to do the F und also the U. Das ist richtig. Because I couldn't do it with the pen. I've got an F on here. Now it's tricky because I've got to do a horizontal now, and I don't want to actually... I've got to go horizontal without going horizontal, if you know what I mean. F. It's hard to do that because I can't quite get the brush in the right place. Be a little bit of tidy up required. I do fear. It's come out a bit wobbly here because it's not an easy space to get the brush into. So let's just get this downstroke a bit fatter. But like I say, you can always go back and tidy up with the reds and things later on. F on that. And a U on this one. There we go. Again, start with the thin line and then thicken it up with the second pass. And these are supposed to be sort of hand painted by the Marine, so if it goes a bit shonky, it's not the end of the world. There we go. Just tidy up that vertical. Gentlemen, tidy your verticals. You damn heathens. So the actual top bar isn't quite horizontal, but hey. Right, there we go. FU on the knees. Now this is a matte ink, but it does look a little bit shiny. But it always will. But some inks will be super, super glossy. So if you're wanting to use inks, see if you can get one that does say matte on it. Obviously once everything's matte varnished, everything will look uniform, and the black, when you first do anything like black ink outlining, you might do it all and think, oh, it looks terrible because some of it's shiny and oh, it looks like a bad paint job. Don't worry, it's only till you put the matte varnish on. Okay, so that's that brush there. So I need to tidy up that bit with the yellow, so I'm going to get my wet palette and then we'll have a look at the chat. Now this is Ural Yellow, so it will take about 1 billion coats. So what I actually want to do first is Avalanche Sunset. Now this may look weird, I'm going to do this, but if you remember, Ural Yellow is a horrible, horrible colour. Now I don't need a lot. I'm actually going to break one of my cardinal rules. I'm going to zoom out a bit as well. No, I don't need to zoom out. And use my actual painting brush to get the paint on the palette, but I do not need much of this at all. So there's no point me messing about with the second brush. A bit of yellow, Ural Yellow. A bit more because I'll probably have to use twice as much. Wow, this must be the quickest I've actually started doing work on in a live stream, and the longest I've gone without actually talking to the chat. So we're going to start off with the Avalanche Sunset first. Now I've not added any water to it because I want to be covering up now, so it needs to be a bit opaque, but also there should be enough moisture on the wet palette. So what we need to do now is basically recover this gunky eye here, which I could have covered up with a paint chip. If I wanted to. Bit of a quick repair job. And if I need to, I can just go over it with the Uniposca pen again, if I need to. In fact, I may well do, because it's just kind of gone a bit weird now. Okay, so that's there. A quick blow on it with the hairdryer, I think, just to set it a little bit. We go with the Ural Yellow, my least favourite colour in the whole world, Ural Bleeding Yellow. Ugh, I hate it. It's a horrible colour. I'm not going to worry too much because I'm going to go over it with the pen again in a minute. I just want to get rid of the excessive bits. Now you will note I do have some darker yellow around the edges of the face. That's intentional, it's supposed to be there. It has like a dark, I'll have to go over the ink again with that bit. It has like a dark texture to it, dark shadow around the edge. It's gone kind of the wrong shape right now, but I can bring it back in a second. I just need to get the yellow paint down first. And while I'm here, I may as well tidy up the mouth a little bit. Because again, don't forget, we are going to do chipping. So if it's not perfect, I'm not fussed. As long as it's roughly the right colours in roughly the right places, all is good. For the head up here, I've got a little bit of Mephiston red work to do. No, not Mephiston red. Squig orange. I've got some squig orange on my palette already. In fact, it's gone too thin though, so let me get some more. Squig orange. So let's do the weathering. It'll be another 3 weeks. We're feeling neglected, says Eric Graham. I'll be with you in a minute, buddies. Honestly, if I don't do work, I get told off, and if I do work, I get told off. I can't win, you know. Right, so this one we just need to do a little bit of tidy up on there. Little tiny touch. That's where I went to splub with the ink. And this is where having not used custom colours is absolute godsend. That'll be fine, I think. I'll just do another quick blast of Uriel just to make it blend a little bit more. Now I'm conscious there's a little bit of texture on there now. It's not quite as smooth as it was because I'm adding extra paint. But again, once it's got matte coat on it, and I've done some paint chipping, you'll never know. You'll never know. I'm going to give it a blast with Thair Dryer. Hair drying across the universe. So I need to firstly tidy up that eyebrow. Just a little tiny bit because it went a bit fuzzy. Go. You know, I might have actually been better doing the eyes with the brush, to be perfectly honest, but too late now. Can't go back. Can't go back. And then that's the big pen. I don't want that. I want the small. That is the small pen. So we just need to touch in that eye again. Do it very lightly now because I've got extra layers of paint there, so I need to be very, very gentle. Make sure I've got some paint coming out. I think that's almost big enough, not quite. I think that will do. I think that's as close as we want to get into the danger zone, don't you? It's good enough. It's not quite symmetrical, but it's painted by the Marine himself in a fit of anger, and there you go. That's my logic. So there we go. We have some angry Marine insignia. It's quite good fun painting that. I did paint, like I say, basically I painted the original yellow circle with Avalanche Sunset. Then I went over it with Uriel yellow to make, because you can't just put I couldn't just put the Uriel yellow straight on the red because it's too transparent. So I went over with the Avalanche Sunset first to get the circle in, then with the Uriel yellow to make it bright yellow, and then back with the Avalanche Sunset just around the edge to give that kind of shadow effect around the edge, which is supposed to be there. And same on this one, same principle. I painted a red circle with Mephiston red, then I went over with the Squig orange to fill in the majority of it, but left some of the Mephiston red showing around the edge just to give it that kind of slight colour mismatch or shaded effect, which is on the artwork on that picture. So there we go. That text should really be symmetrical, but it's fine. So that's that bit done. So what I need to do now is stop locking the camera, come and say hello to you. Look, I've not talked to you for ages. Let's see what the chat's doing. So I'll go back hundreds of feet. Because you're all saying what you'd have for bench and bellies. Let's have a look and see. I could have some coffee as well. So let's have a look. Jeff Longman, if we go back all the way back to like 6 weeks ago when you were answering that question, Jeff Longman says, working on a new Vercar mechanical clear bits. Cool. Pascal Leverse is making pumpkin soup and he's basically eaten an assault glider Hotspur Mark II. Wrong way around there. But I get the idea. The best sausages for a good hot dog is Lidl's Bockwurst, says Team Inept. The only thing I had, because I was in the co-op shop at the time, I was hoping to get some Herta hot dogs, but they didn't have any. So I had to get a tin of, not Stag. Who's that company that makes stuff in tins? It's like one of those brands where they don't even have a pull thing on the lid. It's not Stag, it's the other one. I can't think what they're called. They make, I don't know. Anyway, one of them tins of hot dogs. So it wasn't brilliant, but it did. Meatball sub, excellent choice. Yeah, but homemade. It was basically a tiger loaf finger roll that's a full sub length, a tin of chili, a tin of chilies. Again, it was one of that same company that makes one of those companies that's not big enough to be able to afford to buy the equipment to make the ring pull tin lid. We have to still use a tin opener to get the top off. Chicken curves and chips later, and yeah, brush priming Larissa showed for Shadow from Gladiator, says Paul at Team Inept. Django, I see him, Django, you see, says belly, a pizza with cheese, mushrooms, and a ton of oregano, or oregano if you're not American. Bench, about to start up my Minecraft game and work on my base. Cool. Wayne Haywood says bench, Legion Rebel Fleet Troopers, and belly, dark chocolate digestives. Oh yes, I need to wipe my nose. I didn't need to tell you that, but just in case there's I don't know where there's reflections on screen. I'll zoom out again for you for a minute. Hang on. I wonder if my monetization will be affected by all the rude words. I don't know. Jordan Capuano says, belly will be fish cakes, no roast dinner this week, unsmiley face, sad face, and it's also a different bench this time, working on getting a lovely Blood for the Blood God tattoo. Ah, cool. Eric Graham, we've got a chicken burrito in belly and Dakar Jets and Marauder Destroyers on the bench. That's the Aeronautica Imperialis, isn't it? Where are we? Space Stamp says bench, corn, Blood Reaver, I mean. What, not cornflakes? Nim Cinderian says bench, finishing up the camphor, almost ready for painting, just need to pick out what colours I want to do. Well, you've been working, it does take, that's the thing with Gunpla, if you take the careful doing lots of cleanup and denubbing, it can take weeks. Grey seems right for some reason, but I don't know, belly unknown at the moment, but food, she says. Anything red is good, says Dad, about the colour scheme. Edward Leonard's in, morning all, says Edward. Fox spends the next 20 minutes fighting with the gloves, says Eric Graham. Yep, always. Bench, fetid bloat drone with flesh mower for more Draca, and belly charred tuna mono with deviled eggs. What's a mono? Explain this to us. I know tuna, and I know deviled eggs, and I know how to char something whenever I cook something. Oh, I have to tell you this. Mama Fox told me off. When I made those chili dogs, I got 2 tins of those hot dogs and I put them all in the pan. And I thought I'll do them all at once. If I don't eat them all right now, I can always come back to them and eat them later. Because at least they've been cooked. So I put them in the pan and heated them up and stuff. I made my chili dogs. I had 3 chili dogs, so I had 6 of the hot dogs. Mama Fox had 2, so she had 4. So there was a load left. I basically had about 6 or 7 hot dogs left. So I thought I'll leave them in the pan. If I want a snack later on, I can put them in whatever I want to do with them, because there's some of the chili left as well. So I went back upstairs. I ate my chili dogs. I watched an entire episode of Connections 3 with James Burke. And then I came downstairs to bring my plate downstairs, get a fresh cup of coffee. And I thought, what's that smell? I can smell burning. What's Mama Fox doing? She's had a lunch. Why would she be cooking something? I walked in the kitchen and somebody in this house, for some reason, had walked off and left the lowest of low heat on the pan with the hot dogs in it. And it had basically boiled dry and all the water had gone and it was just burnt. It was just hot dogs in the pan with no water for like an hour and a half. I'd totally not even noticed. So I'm like, oh God, the pan's ruined. Turns out, of course, when we washed the pan was fine. It just all fell off and I was like, wow, I can leave things to burn. I don't know how I did it. I just totally didn't turn the gas off on that particular one ring. God knows. All I can say is thank God it wasn't the pan with chilli in it, because that would have been a nightmare. Let's have a look. Paul at Team Inept says to Kenneth, hello sweetie, nice to see you. Yes, it is nice to see Kenneth. Hey Paul, I'm glad Dad was okay. Fox said bollocks. Yes, I did. There's no point not denying it now. By the way, I meant to say, although I can't swear, and I might occasionally say something like that, but I'm not supposed to swear because I'm monetized. But if you do want to swear in chat, you're more than welcome, because I don't care. Say whatever you want in chat. Just don't do politics, don't be religion, don't be a tool. Other than that, you can swear if you want. Edward Leonard has chicken piccata and mashed 1/5000 scale Star Destroyer. I think he means chicken piccata and mashed, and also a 1/5000 scale Star Destroyer. Is that the Bandai one? Kenneth M says inks are awesome for airbrushing too and bringing back colour saturation. Absolutely, yes. A lot of people use inks for things like tinting as well, especially things like exhaust heat staining. But inks are great. You can use them almost like a glaze. Like if you took a yellow ink and very lightly airbrushed it over the yellow parts of this, it would make that. You remember like when I put a glaze on here? I put the yellow glaze on the yellow to make it pop. If you took yellow ink and just sprayed that over the yellow parts, it really boosts that colour. Because inks are they're not necessarily very opaque, but they are. But if you spray them very lightly, they can just be a real bold, bright colour. So if you want a real bright colour, they're really nice. I've never actually sprayed them though. I have used them in other ways, but I've seen them used like that. So yeah, inks are great. Why has nobody phoned Fox while he's doing the delicate work, says Paul, because I think even then, like, everybody knew you really wouldn't want to mess with me while I was doing little ink outlines. Beyond Hope says, hint, Vallejo game inks mixed with water, 1 part ink to 4 parts of water normally will give you a glaze that almost matches Citadel's now absent glazes. Vids on YouTube show the exact ratios. Yeah, they are quite good. I've got the sepia ink and black ink for Vallejo. The only thing I would say is the Vallejo inks are very good, but they are nowhere near as opaque as artist ink, as India ink. If you're looking for a black, I was going to say this earlier and never did. If you're looking for really good quality inks, you want to go for De La Rowney. Obviously, go to an art shop, not a model making shop. De La Rowney or Winsor and Newton. All this stuff. This Dr. Martins. I got this off Amazon. But yeah, it amuses me that I went on looking for inks and I found a pot of the Winsor & Newton Black India ink, and it's still got exactly the same label that it had when I was like 13 doing brush and ink, pen and ink drawings, like a spider thing. It's really nice inks. They're really opaque. They're really solid. You could do a thin line and then a fat line to fatten it out, and that will be all you need. You don't need to do multiple coats. If you're doing fine outline work, I know I did that with a pen, but if you're doing fine outline work that needs delicate work, but you can't do lots and lots of coats, go for an ink, not for a paint. Tyrone Key says, washing up now, got to get back to the painting, the Corvas Cabal for Warcry. Jamie Bones in, yeah, he says he had roast beef today. Oh, not roast chicken, you're breaking the trend. Spid is in, welcome Spid. Lewis Williamson's in, hi everyone, welcome Lewis. Sai says, Houston, do you mean Houston? Houston, the Kevin has landed. There we go. You're late, Sai, 100 lines. Tyrone is painting his up like pigeons. Interesting. Oh yeah, because Sai says, why does the Angry Moon have a bindi? And Nim says, you'll see, but he's a captain. I noticed that with you. It's very Hare Krishna, isn't it? Beyond Hope says to Tyrone, I'm picking up the Cypher Lords next week, though they look more like fancy pigeons or doves. Will look fun next to my Stormcast Bone Splitters and Nighthaunt teams. Right. More T Vicker says butcher that model. Kevin Reynolds says, I've got to shoot again. Just wanted to say hi. Stupidly busy, sorted shiz out on Ipswich to move. Have fun, folks. Thanks for coming in, Si. Sorry I missed you half an hour ago when you actually left. Thanks for coming in there, buddy. Si also says, one last thing. Check the Boom Hut pin post for info on this year's Secret Santa. Yes, if you're a member of the Model Makers Boom Hut, the best group on Facebook, and if one of the mods could very kindly post a link up for the Boom Hut for me, because I can't get to the computer right at this exact moment. If you're in the Boom Hut, we did one last year where it's a Secret Santa, and all you do is we've set up set up an email address. You just mail your name and details. Go and read the post. I've forgotten already. Go and read the post in the Boom Hut. It's pinned on the top. It's one of the announcement posts. Basically, it's just open to everybody. You can spend whatever you like. You don't have to spend a fortune. But like Si says in the post, some people will spend a lot because some people will. Some people don't spend a lot because they haven't got a lot of money. We don't want to hear any bitching because you got a present that's worth like £3.50. That's not the spirit of it. The spirit of it is you just get something fun from somebody who may not tell you who they are. It might be something expensive, it might not. That's not the point. So go and read the post on the top. Also, go and read the post on the top. The other announcement, of course, George is sorting out the winners of the Sazabi group build, the first stage, because there's 2 announcements, 2 winners. So go and read that. So I don't think he's announced the winner yet. Dad, is this the right time to phone Fox? His phone is muted. It is now. No, I can't. The thing is, I can't because unfortunately, I have to admit, I can't mute my phone because I always need it on just in case Dad or somebody has to text me and say your stream's fallen over. Super chat him then. Chris is in. Stu is round. Hello, round Stu. I don't know, somebody's name's gone a bit weird there. A very sickly hello, everyone, says Eon's car. Chris, you're having a session later with the gang. Oh, hi, Stewpot. That's because the Stewpot's in. I'm not paying attention to the chat here. I'm thinking about other things. Bryce Sigmon. Anyone have experience with using Mr. Weathering colour through an airbrush? I haven't myself. I'm sorry if I'm unfamiliar with any rules or taboos. No, there's no rules in this chat other than don't swear. That's right. Then don't be racist, sexist, or do politics or religion. You can do it. We can do swearing. I haven't used the Mr. Weathering colours though. Are they? What are they? Are they enamels or acrylics? If anybody in chat's used them, I'm not sure. I don't think anybody that I know has. Fox should paint that neck tabbed up like a little tiny head. Right, I'm going to jump ahead with the chat a bit. Because I've lost the chat now. Simon Reynolds did try and helpfully post the link to the Boom Hut, but he posted a mobile link to the Boom Hut, which is just ass. And always looks terrible on a desktop. So yes, if somebody could put the regular Boom Hut link in there. But yes, welcome Bryce. There's no rules. I'm just painting stuff. You guys hang out and chat. If you want to ask a question, make sure to put it, if you want to have a chance of me seeing it, make sure to put it in big fat capital letters, or if you want to use the super chat that's in the bottom right hand corner of the chat window, that pops up in a coloured box and makes a noise and animates something on the screen. Other than that, there's no rules. Just don't be a tool in chat. JS Idaho is in, but then it is going. It says, have a great day, everyone. Packing up a house in short notice for a move across country is always fun. Huzzah. Thanks for popping in, Idaho. So all right, it says, Bryce says, Paul at Team Net, we're allowed to talk about model stuff. Where did I get that? I've done that one. Luft waffles, yes. If you're in the Boom Hut, go and have a look. There's a photograph of a Stroop waffle, but it's done. I won't spoil it. Go and have a look. Luft waffles. Frey Bentos. No, not Frey Bentos. I can't remember what it's called. Right. Eon's car says, Bench is taking some rest while I get better. Belly tomato soup. If you're not well, you want chicken soup, not tomato soup. Tomato soup is rubbish. Tomato soup is the peas of the soup world. It's just bland and boring. It's like water with colouring. It's like peas. Peas are pointless. Peas are the most pointless fruit or vegetable or whatever you want to call them ever. They just don't have peas. Have beans or something else. Don't have peas. But tomato soup, no. Chicken soup. If you're not well, chicken soup. Lewis Williamson says, Belly will be roast gammon and all the trimmings. Bench Perspex making a display case for my USS Enterprise. Cool. Stewpot says, okay, so I want to throw out a challenge to you all. It will soon be Halloween. How about something from you all to start now for Halloween? Just an idea. Yeah, feel free. I've not got time myself to do anything like that. But yeah, if you want to do a kind of little group build in the Boom Hut Halloween thing, there's a lot of you out there that can do like 13 builds a week and can finish a build in a week, whereas I do like 1 build a year and it takes me months. That doesn't make sense. 1 build a year and that takes me months. That doesn't quite work, does it? Right, where are we up to? Bryce says, well, now I need to go and start cooking something. We need to know all about it, Bryce. Need to know what you're making. Interzone 88 is in. Mordraka says that should have been charred tuna mornay with the deviled eggs. Okay, I know what that is. That's nice. Jamie Bones working on some Space Marine heroes, belly, roast beef, and all the trimmings. Yes, not chicken, as I thought. I've still got here, Jamie, not forgotten all the Space Marine heroes that you sent to me in this box. I've still got them. I'll get round to them. Just in case you wondered, I have still got them. I have many things that people have sent to me that I need to get on with at some point. Maybe this brush gets on my nerves. Gaz Vickers is in. Welcome, Gaz. I'm going to have to jump forward a bit because I'll be doing chat all day. Mr. Weathering are enamels, I believe. Oh, okay. If they're enamels, then it's very easy. First of all, make sure that your airbrush can do enamel paint. Make sure it's solvent safe, because enamels require oil paint thinners or spirits or anything like that. So you're going to be using solvents. But yeah, enamels are really, really nice to spray with. Whether it's literally a weathering product, like for example, I've got lots of Ammo by Migs, say panel line washes, which are enamels. I've also got lots of powders and other sort of washes and things that are all enamels. If it's like a very thin paint, like a panel line wash, you can just pour it straight into the paint cup and spray it. Just go very lightly, and you can get nice dusty effects, nice dusting effects. It's a lovely way of doing it. It's really nice. And then if you go over a little bit and you want to say, because they take a little while to dry, what you can do is spray over the enamel. Over whatever you're painting, like if you're doing like a dusty coat, say a dusty colour or engine grime or something, spray it over very lightly and then get a dry cotton bud and just wipe off the excess over some of the raised details. It'll really, or make little streaks out of it. It'll work really well. But yeah, just use them neat. You don't need to thin them, just spray them on neat. Go in very, very light coats. What's everyone's thought of tomato sauce on a roast dinner? I'd put tomato sauce on a roast dinner. I put lots of other things on it as well, though, so I won't get myself into trouble. Bryce is making PBLTs, pimento, bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwiches. Oh, swapping pimento cheese for mayo takes it to another level. Yeah, you'll fit into this group quite nicely in that case, Bryce. You're already fit in now. That's it. You're making awesome food, therefore you're instantly part of the gang. Ian's car says, yes, I know. I'll have to have chicken soup tomorrow. Bryce, I looked at the Mr. Weathering colour. They're apparently an oil-based paint. There's even a special thinner they make to go with them. If they're oil-based paints, you can use any oil paint thinner that you can get from the art store, assuming they're oil-based, like oil paints. You can use white spirits, but that stinks. You can use you can get specific enamel paint thinners are actually exactly the same as oil paint thinners. So you can use any oil paint thinner, basically, if they're oil-based paints, just like you get from the art store. Again, you can use those if they're in a pot and it's a liquid. Then you can spray them on. You don't need to thin them. It should be very thin. Let's have a look. Mark 3B says, slight lack of likes, guys. I don't know what that refers to. Jamie Bear said, I tried it. It's not bad, especially when there's over gravy on the veg. I quite like tomato sauce. I like tomato sauce. Just because Paul likes his proper cooked stuff, I like tomato sauce. I'm not saying that I'm like, I'm not a President Trump sticking tomato sauce on my steak here. I'm not quite that bad. But, I'll add some tomato sauce on the top. Oh, sniffly those today. A bit of Henderson's relish, a bit of mayo or something. Right, anyway, so yes, we've got that bit done. So that has now been painted on. It's looking a lot better. The black ink is shiny, but that will go away once it's been matte varnished. So the next step now, we're not going to do any metallics because they're going to get sorted out. Once everything else is done and painted, we'll matte varnish him. Then we'll go over with any metallic finishing colours to get the shine back, and then we'll hit them with a gloss varnish just to keep them shiny. So what the next step now is a bit of paint chipping, I think. So I'm going to have a swig of coffee. I'm going to take my big fluffy socks off because it's too warm now. It was really cold, so I've got my big fluffy heat holder socks on. Taking them off. Oh, too warm. Bryce says he saw one model on YouTube using the weathering rust orange and brown through an airbrush on a Zaku 2 for competition entry, so I was thinking about trying them out myself. Yeah, go for it. Oils and enamels are great because they take so long to dry. If you airbrush an enamel paint on, or I assume an oil-based thin, watery oil paint, I guess, you've probably got a good few hours working time before they're, you can't take them off. But they are easily removed. Just make sure before you I would say before you put any weathering on a model, you might want to, depending on what you want to do, actually no, they'll be fine. Just make sure that whatever paint you're putting them on top of is fully cured. If it's acrylics, make sure it's had, 24 hours to fully cure, because then you can go over with oil paint thinners and they shouldn't affect any acrylic paints underneath. So there you go. Try it on spoons first, says Bryce, says Dad. Yeah, get yourself some, go to the shop and get a pack of plastic spoons, prime them up and paint them, and then try the techniques out on that. So, chipping time. We're going to do 2 lots of chipping, or the 3 lots. We've got, we're going to have a light coloured yellow, a light coloured red, and then a grey colour. And if you know me with my chipping, I tend to do the light colour first, only brush painted, the light colour first, and then we go over with the grey colour underneath. And what I'm going to suggest, what I'm going to simulate, is that the grey colour is going to be like the primer underneath the paint, and the light yellow or the light red is where you've got like the edge of the paint between the exposed primer or the exposed metal and the paint itself. So it's going to be a light colour. So for the yellow, I have Dawn Yellow. For the red, I have Fulgrim Pink, and they look a bit extreme, but it'll make sense later on, trust me. So we're going to get some of these off. I've got the itchy nose again. Gosh damn it, nose. Stop being such a tool and being itchy. One thing I will do first, before we do anything, I'm going to change my water because it's got ink in it. So give me 1 second while I change my water out. I shall return momentarily. There we go, got some fresh water. So we need my dishing paint out brush, and we're going to have some Teach Better. So thank you for encouraging me off on my addiction to plastic crack. Hey Guru, I originally started I'll read these out of order, shall I? Hey Guru, started watching your vids because of Gunpla, but I recently got into Warhammer because of you. Yes. Yeah, I'm a dangerous person to know. When I first started the Model Maker's Boom Hut, it was lots of Warhammer, lots of Gunpla. Now it's kind of Warhammer and Gunpla. Yeah, although I have to admit, I didn't start the whole craze of mostly naked Japanese anime ladies. I don't know where that came from. Ooh, this one's all separated out. Let me give it a darn good shake. Shaking, shaking, shaking. There we go. Dawn Yellow. It looks like some kind of like slightly lemony yogurt cheesecake flavour. It's a most delightful colour. Most delightful colour. Now it is a very bright colour. It's a very strange paint. It's very like not coming out of the pot. Hang on. Give it a good, proper good rummagey shake. Wait, so is that a group where people just post pictures of all the different things they test? I assume that was the Model Maker's Spoon Hut. Yes, there is as well as the Model Maker's Boom Hut, which is a place for model makers to hang out and have a good time. There's also the Model Maker's Spoon Hut, which was set up as a joke, as a Facebook group for people that test colours on spoons. And actually, we set it up as a joke, and within about a week, it had more members than some other groups. Proper group. Some are like, okay, that was more successful than we thought. So yes, it's a real group, the Model Maker's Spoon Hut. Yes. Anyway, let's crack on. So we've got a light yellow and a light red, as in pink. So what we're going to do is, we're not going to use the smallest brush in the world. We don't need to. I'm going to use my... or maybe we do actually. I'm going to continue to use the brush that I've just put down and can't find now. Where's my... There it is. I use my double O, my Winsor & Newton double O, not my triple O. I nearly keep putting my brush in my coffee as well. It's most annoying. I need my helmet of seeing. Ain't nothing wrong with naked Japanese anime ladies, says Spid. True. This is true. Now what we're going to do here, I'll zoom in again for you. Hang on. Remember, quality on the camera is terrible. The colours are a lot brighter than they are in real life, and also it's zoomed in on a digital camera, which is terrible anyway. So I'm gonna start with the yellow, which is Dawn Yellow. I've got a little bit more thinner than normal, so it's on the wet palette and thinned anyway. But I'm adding a little tiniest amount of water, hardly anything though. Yeah. Oh, excuse me, got the burps, meatball burps. Woohoo! And all we're going to do is dead simple. What we're going to do is just start doing paint chips around edges, wherever we think it's relevant. Now it'll look a bit blatantly obvious now. It'll look a bit bright and stark, but that's fine. It's a mixture of edge highlighting and adding chips as well. And we're just going to slowly work our way around. Now the golden rule of thumb, remember, is in reality, when you see something that's got paint chipping on it, it's not really going to have chips. You never really see a paint chip bigger than, let's say, a human hand. So you don't want tons and tons of massive, enormous chips. You want lots and lots of little ones, especially around edges and where things might be in contact and get scraped and scratched. Now I'm going to do quite a bit on here. You might be thinking it's a bit too much, but you have to remember that a lot of these chips will actually be covered up by the dark grey paint that comes next. So I'll just add a little bit of water because it's frightening me a little bit. No, it's too thin. And we're just going to go ahead and add little spots and dots. Many of them from the edges of panels. Some might not, some might just be in the middle of a panel regardless. What we might do is do some scrapes and scratches. So for scrapes and scratches, you just get the very point of your brush. Remember, it needs to be thinner than normal so it can carry, and you just literally very lightly drag it. And I tend to do a few little touches like that so it's not a constant straight line. And do a couple maybe radiating out like that. It looks more like an impact. Now it looks very obvious there, it looks very like bright, and you've got this big yellow area. But what will happen is we will actually fill that in with the grey, and it will balance that out. So it looks a bit stark now, but it won't be that bad in a bit, trust me. So this is now what I need to do for the next few hours. So the easiest way to try and keep it minimal is just work along an edge like that at 45 degrees, doing that with the brush, and then just start adding in chips. Keep them small, and in places try and stick to logical things like edges where there be contact between two surfaces. Paint will chip away. High traffic areas, so for example near handles and grips, obviously people are going to be handling those parts. If you're going for a realistic look, paint will come away. And then just general scrapes and scratches. I'm going to put a big scratch across here, or maybe not, it's not quite thick enough. I'll put a big scratch across here like that. Because once you've got all the yellow bits down, I like to make scratches cross over as well. That sometimes makes it interesting. Once you've got all the yellow bits down, for example, it will look really weird because you have all these yellow speckles everywhere. But as soon as we start filling these in with the grey, it'll all kind of come together. And I'm going to break my own rule and have a big bit of yellow just here. Because again, we're going to fill that in. Water because it's just drying out a little bit. This is a very weird paint though. It doesn't behave quite the same as normal Games Workshop colours. There we go. Do some around here. Carefully making sure we don't get it on the actual engine bit. And of course you can, if you need to, if you've got any bits where you've messed up a bit of a paint job, that's not a problem. That's where your paint chips come in. I'm afraid while I'm doing this, it's over to you guys to entertain yourselves in chat a little bit. Because, yeah, I'm doing this now. I can't do nothing. Oop. Oops. I've got a little bit on the metal there, but I'll touch that again. I'll fix it later. So don't worry if you do get any on parts that aren't supposed to be that colour. You can always fix it later. And it's trying to keep things looking random. Don't put chips everywhere. You want some things to not be chipped. It's kind of a hard balancing act. It is a hard balancing act to sort of keep going. It's easy to go far too far and do too much. It's just knowing when to stop, and I usually go on the wrong side of knowing when to stop. So don't take my word as the gospel. Yeah, I usually go far too far. But I tend to recover it reasonably well. If it also helps, hold the brush a bit further back than you normally would and let your hand shake. If you normally rest your hand on the desk to keep it steady, don't. You want to get some natural shaking in there in a lot of ways. That way you can get some reasonably natural positions for your chips. Chips. Somewhere on there. You've got to kind of... It's easy to do too much. You end up looking like everything looks like a Dalmatian. It is easy to... I'm probably going to do it now because it's a very easy mistake to make. It's not hard to get that effect. I'm going to try and restrain myself now and just stick to edges. Doesn't mean, unfortunately, this particular episode, this particular live stream has been a bit boring for you guys because I'm actually doing work. Sorry. These little pointy corners here, I'm going to paint them in where they meet. Because when you get two edges that meet like that, there's more chance for paint to chip off because you've got the two edges. You've got a layer of paint where, rather than having one edge for paint to be rucked up on, you've got two edges coming together. So you tend to get a lot of extra paint removal on corners like that. But again, remember, a lot of this yellow will be covered up with the grey. So don't worry too much if you think you've gone too far. Lol folks, that shaking hands trick is my standard state. It does help with chipping, yes. If you've naturally got shaky hands, chipping's dead easy. But it is really just a trick of try and keep them as small as possible. It's one of the rare times where you can actually use the tip of the brush for a lot of it. Make sure the paint is a little thinner than normal, just so you can get the really fine little lines like those and little scratchy marks, and for little tiny little paint chips. Sometimes build up little areas, like where there is a corner, for example, so you don't just get light yellow and dark yellow, you get little patches of dark yellow broken up by the light yellow. There's a magpie on my window ledge. I can see it out the corner of my eye and I can hear it is muttering to itself. Hello magpie. I like when magpies mutter. You probably can't. I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone. I do like the magpies. When they're not doing their shouty alarm calls. If you have magpie, this is UK magpies, yeah, European. They're not doing the little normal shouty alarm calls. They tend to like sit there and mutter to themselves. They make little squishy noises and it's quite fascinating to listen to. But there's one that likes to land on my window ledge and survey the garden. It's actually looking in right now. I'm just checking it out. It's actually looking in the window right now. Hello. One day I'll be surprised if I came in here and somehow found it and managed to get in. That'd be awesome. But like, there's a magpie in my room. This is both awesome and the worst day in the world. Worst thing ever. People are talking about Girls and Panzer and Dr. Stone. I've got no idea what they are. I'm going to guess anime. Well, I know what Girls and Panzer is. I've never seen it. Tell a lie. I do know what it is. By the way, this Dawn Yellow, it looks like lemon cheesecake. It kind of doesn't taste anything like lemon cheesecake, just so you know. Okay, another trick. I don't know if you can see any of this, but another trick is when you have an edge. Let's see if I can find a decent edge. When you have an edge, for example, let's say like the edge of the foot here, the edge of the leg armour, and you've got your little chipping around the edge, and you put a little paint chip there perhaps. It looks good, but if you want it to make it look more dynamic, do the lines tricks, a little tiny radiating lines, very, very lightly, but that come from an edge and from a point. And it just makes it look like the original chip you painted there is the point of impact. And the radiating lines are just sort of where the debris is pinged off. If you can, make one of them a bit longer. And it's just very, very faint, and it will just give that kind of ping ricochet effect. And it just makes it more interesting than just little chips here and there. It suggests that the chipping is not just through, wear and tear or something. And it can be a lot more. So I did a little bit there as well. The chip builds up, and then what I'm trying to suggest with this light colour, the best way to visualise it, and it will make more sense when the dark grey goes on the top, but is the paint itself on this armour is yellow. That's pretty obvious. But perhaps over time, obviously that yellow gets dirty and it's darker because it picks up dirt and debris and all kinds of weathering and stuff. So it looks darker. But when that paint then gets chipped, before it goes down to primer or to bare metal, in some places you might expose either a base coat of a lighter yellow, or you might expose paint that hasn't yet been exposed to the air, so it's not quite dark and dirty. And that's what this lighter colour will be. It'll be the little area of yellow paint where it's chipped the paint off to expose some clean, unweathered paint, but not so much that it's gone through to metal or primer or anything like that. Now you will have to probably go around some of these edges again to put the shade back in once it's done, but that's fine. Okay, so we'll keep working around the backpack area here. So where you've got a nice edge, you can just touch the brush to the edge, 45 degrees. Make sure you're not doing a solid constant line because that's boring. You want to keep it interesting, variable, also on camera. But it's a good starting point if nowhere else. Just to have some patches, because you can go around the edges and then take it from there, and that'll be your inspiration as to where you want bigger chips and smaller chips to go. Keep in mind, of course, the reason you want to have the paint a little thinner than normal is so that it's a little bit more transparent, but also if it's a little bit thinner than normal, then when you touch the brush to the model, you'll have the transfer of paint faster. And what that means is, instead of having to physically press the model onto the brush onto the model to deposit the paint, you can just simply touch the very, very tip of the brush to the model, and it will transfer paint. You'll get much smaller shapes that way, much smaller chips. So you're not having to physically press the brush. You're just almost touching it to the model, and the paint just transfers magically. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll get the yellow done on the backpack here, and then I'll jump into the grey colour just to illustrate for you what I mean about the actual grey completing the chips. You complete me! A bit there, because I don't want to sit here for the next hour and a half just doing this. Boring is sensible. So we'll just go around. Now you don't have to do everywhere. Do keep in mind, of course, that you can't see every. If it's a bit that people aren't really going to see, you can kind of skimp leg day a bit. You know, you don't have to chip every single surface. Just focus on the stuff that people are actually going to be able to see and focus on. Might be better if I'd done the helmet, to be honest, because then you would have seen a bit more of it. This bit down is quite tricky because it's quite small and hard to get to. Okay. Just trying to get my brush in there. And if you're ever not sure, just with chipping, it's always a case of it's better to do less and then check as you go along than to do more and then realise you put on too much. If you're ever not sure, if you ever start thinking, is that enough? Just stop. And then come back to it the next day and think, right, okay, that looks fine. Or no, that is too much. Or I want to do more. Because, I mean, the number of times I've done a load of chipping and sat back and thought, that looks terrible, I've gone too far, I've done too much. But then the next day I come back and I'm looking at it and think, actually, it's not that bad. I take it back, it's not that bad. Okay, so we'll do a couple of little quick scrapes down here like that. Right, so hopefully you can see. So, what I'd now do, if we imagine for a minute I've done all the yellow, I've just done the backpack, but I don't know why I told you that, because you just sat and watched me do it. But what I might do now is, for example, take some Skaven Blight Dinge, which is a wonderful colour. I need to brush my nose, wipe my nose. Skaven Blight Dinge. It's a warmish grey. It's a bit warmer than Mechanicus Standard Grey. Get some on the wet palletings. You can use whatever colour you want. Of course, it's not actually locked into a specific thing. If you wanted to suggest, say for example, that the metal underneath the paint was rusty. Let's say you were painting a World War II tank, especially a Russian tank, which would be made of rust, or you're painting, let's say you're putting chipping on a Zaku, and you want to suggest that where the paint has chipped away, maybe it's rusty metal, it's oxidised. Now, these are made of whatever they're made of. Not, like iron plate, but you get the idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the Skaven Blight Dinge again, add a little tiny amount of water to it. It's already thin enough from the wet palette, but we'll add a little bit extra. And all we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same that we've just done, but we're going to put the Skaven Blight Dinge inside some of the yellow chips that we've painted. Not on every chip, that's with the paint. Not everywhere, but on some of them. And what this will suggest, hopefully, is that you've got the base yellow colour of the armour. Is that on camera? Yes. You've got the basic yellow colour of the armour, which is dirty and been exposed to air and smoke and damage. And in some places that's been chipped away and exposed a lighter yellow, which is the paint it was like a layer down and it's never really been exposed to air, so it's a clean yellow colour, or it's a different coat of yellow that went on before the darker yellow on top, something like that. But then in some places the damage has been enough to actually get through that and just expose the bare substrate, which, as I'm doing it as a grey colour, you could interpret as a dull metal, or it could be some kind of futuristic space primer that just happens to be grey. And that's all you're doing, is you're recreating the story of the weathering. Whenever you do any kind of weathering, you're creating a story, a timeline. And when you're doing anything like chipping or any kind of... because weathering is just damage. It's just damage and entropy. You're just creating entropy, if you want to get all physics about it. And it's just creating a storyline. And the storyline is that on this little bit here where it's light yellow, it had some damage, but not enough to break through the paint, just enough to scrape a layer off. And on the bit above it where it's a dark grey colour, well, that's where the chip went a bit deeper perhaps, and it scraped all the paint off. And now you can see here underneath it's the primer, or maybe it's the underlying metal or whatever the armour's made of. Depends on what you're painting, of course. Now the trick here with the dark grey is to be a bit more focused than you were with the yellow. With the yellow you can get a little bit bigger, but with the dark grey you're always working inside one of the little yellow chips. So you've got to use, really using the point of your brush, hardly touching it to the model at all. And it's just the tiniest areas. You're kind of following the same shape. So what you end up with, I'll draw it so it's easier to see. I'll draw on a bit of paper. Let me find a bit of paper. I shall use this Canadian notebook that was very kindly sent to me. What you're essentially creating is, here's an object in 3 dimensions. It's not even on camera. There you go. Here's an object in 3 dimensions. There's a paint chip here, so this is all a colour. Something bounces off, it goes pting off the surface like that. It takes a chunk of paint off like that. So what you have here is, let's say this is say red paint. This bit, it chips off the surface layer of paint. So here this might be paint it's still a red paint layer, but it's a lighter colour red, so it might be a pink colour or something, because it's never been exposed to the oxygen before, and to the air and to the environment. It might be a layer of paint underneath the red. You might have a bold red colour, but underneath might be a lighter colour or a pink or something. And then what I can then do is paint in the grey in the middle like that. And that's the area where the chip is deep enough that it's taken off not just the top paint and the unweathered paint underneath, but also it's gone through to whatever that dark grey colour is, whether it's primer or bare metal. And that's all we're doing. We're painting a yellow chip like that, and then in some places we're just putting a little dark grey chip like that. That's all we're doing. So you have this halo of the light colour, and what that's suggesting is that on the paint, you've got the paint there, and then there's a little chip, and then there's the surface underneath, and this is where the light bounces off the clean unweathered paint. So here's weathered, here's dirty, that's the dirty paint, this is bare metal or whatever you want to call it, and this is a little bit of paint that's clean. And that's all you're doing. You're just creating this fake 3D effect. It sounds more complex to explain it, but it's beautifully simple. And there are different ways of painting it. Some people will paint the dark chips first, and then they'll spend painstakingly going around with a very fine brush painting on all the little fine outlines. However, if you're not that skilled at brush painting, if you've not got the steady hand, you may find it easier to simply paint the light chips first, so you can go quite big, and then fill some of those in with your dark paint. It's a bit easier, but you need to be a bit more focused with the darker paint. And like I say, you can use whatever colour you want. I tend to go for some fairly standard colours that just seem to work quite well. So for example, reds, it works with pink. Bear in mind, this is a stylized, this isn't super realistic. You know, if you want super realistic, you can go for, you know, chipping fluids and like proper weathering products. But there's always a place for this style of slightly stylized paint chip. Yes, it's kind of a cartoon paint chip, but your brain will see it and it kind of knows exactly what it thinks it needs to see. I mean, when you're making something in miniature, sometimes it pays to exaggerate some things and understate other things just for the sake of it making sense in scale. So for example, this big yellow thing here, there's quite a big yellow area there. Now remember what I said, paint chips themselves are very rarely bigger than a human hand, so we don't have to make the actual massive grey chip. I mean, we don't have to make the grey chip massive. We can make the grey chip quite small. So the grey chip could be there. Now you're thinking, well, there's a big load of yellow around that, but yeah, you know what you can do? You can paint in some more grey chips. Separate to those. Maybe have them going up that way a little bit. And now it looks like you've got a little area where the paint's chipping away, and you've got not just one chip, but multiple chips, and perhaps they're all slowly joining up, so you've got that kind of speckled effect. And the way I like to think of it is, I'll get the book back and I'll show you. You want to imbue your chips with, not all of them, but some of them you want to imbue them with a sense of movement, a sense of velocity, a sense of travel. Because you have to think about how chips are made. Sometimes a chip occurs because the metal under the paint corrodes and the paint bubbles up and then it falls away. Sometimes it's something physically impacting the paint. I'll show you what I was talking about earlier on about, let me move this brush out of the way. So what you can do, when you do your paint chip, when you do the first one, so let's say the light yellow one, don't just go paint chip, blur, paint chip, paint chip. Don't just do splats. What you can do is, let's say there's an edge here. Why not move this out from under the chat? Why not put your paint chip here, like that? You just do it. You wouldn't be that careful. It would just be kind of, you'd blob it with the brush. So that might be your paint chip. But you could do that, and then you fill it here with the dark grey colour, or whatever colour you want. However, why not add one here and one here, and then have one here that's kind of that shape, and you could put one here and like that. The way I like to think of it is, imagine that you've got, imagine that on the surface here you've got the surface, and you've got imagine you've got a pile of soil like that. And then you go ping underneath, or you push it from underneath, and then that pile of soil kind of explodes a bit, so you get bits flying out like that. But they go in a direction like that. They don't necessarily go straight up or straight to the left, but they might go, they have that kind of shape. So instead of just a pile, you now have radiating lines, and you can, in your mind, and you can say, well, I can put a chip there. I can put a chip there that's kind of that shape. One bigger one there, and as theoretically they'd be bigger towards the main chip, and as you move away they get smaller and smaller. And that's kind of how you, in a comic book, you would draw an explosion. Have a thing there, and you have bits coming out, and you just get smaller and smaller, and they'd kind of have a shape to them, and to suggest the direction of travel. And that's what you can do with chips, because then that suggests that something's come along and it's gone on a surface like that. It's hit the surface and gone ping and bounced up again. So, for example, if you have a surface here, I'm doing your teaching now, something comes along, impacts here, and then pings off again that way. So what you'd have is you'd have a splat here with your paint chip, and you might have then stuff that comes off when that thing hits is going to skitter off across the surface. So you might have bits of debris that go like that in the direction of travel. If it goes like that, it's not going to splatter back here. So it's going to be like all coming off in that direction. So you're suggesting an impact, and it's just another way of doing it. Just another little way of doing it. Just to give it some depth. It sounds a little more complicated than it is, and it takes a little bit of practice, and it is easy to completely overdo it. But hopefully what you can see on this backpack now, as I work my way through, is that where those big yellow patches looked a bit messy and like, what the hell have you done? It's a terrible paint job. As soon as you start putting the darker colour in the middle, it just starts to make it all make sense. And your brain goes, oh, it's where the paint's come off and there's a little highlight. Ah, I get you. Because at first your brain's thinking, why have you got this yellow stuff everywhere? But then you realise, oh, it's just where the paint's come away. Ah, that makes sense. So where I did that little splat effect here, the little trailing out arms here, I can just do little similar things with the grey. Not following it exactly. You're not literally copying the yellow shape. Some bits you just want a little bit of it going in, some bits you might want to go a bit further. You're just echoing it. The dark grey chips will tend to be a lot smaller than the yellow chips because they're just the centres. And again, once we finish this and there's weathering and other weathering and stuff on top, and we'll probably do a glaze to make everything blend in. Maybe we might do. It'll all kind of blend together. And if you do find that your chips are a bit stark, like your light colour is a bit too light, don't panic, or the dark is a bit too dark, it's too much contrast, you can, like we've done before, do a glaze and that will just bring it together. So for example, if I do a yellow glaze on this when it's finished, it will make the dark yellow and the light yellow become more sort of contiguous. And it'll make the dark grey, it'll give the dark grey a little bit of a yellow kick. Now that might cause problems later on, so you probably won't do that, but what we can do later on is do the old standby of a light airbrush of a dust colour to make everything blend together. So that is basically what I need to do now. A lot of chipping. But you can see there the kind of effect we're going for. It just gives you this nice pocked, scarred, scraped look. Not every scratch and scrape will go down to bare metal. Not every scratch or ding will go down to primer. So you'll have different colours. But if you are brush paint, I much prefer brush paint chipping than using chipping fluids and things. I know that chipping fluids can give you spectacular results and they can look brilliant. But to me, I just enjoy this part far too much. I like this part of the process. For me personally, it's hard to mess up. You can't get it wrong, you can just do too much. Because I've been doing it for so long, I know it like the back of my hand. So to me, I don't have to think about it now. I just go ahead and enjoy it. So there we go, and that's all we're going to do now. That's all I'm going to do. Now, when it comes to the red parts, of course, red parts can be the same principle. Whereas the light colour is going to be that pink, and then the grey is going to be the Skaven Black Dinge again. So that is it. Wow, so loud today. Quiet down, folk. I'm guessing the chat's died a bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a swig of coffee. Question from Lewis Williamson. Got a bit of a novice question. Got some Citadel paint packs, one base, 2 shades, 4 layers. Why is the shade the second process than the layer? Why not shade last? Well, here's the basic principle. I can't demonstrate it really in any real way, but for example, here we have Anne Shield. I'll zoom out. I'll stay where I am. Here we have Anne Shield. That's Mephiston Red. That is Avalan Sunset Yellow, but it's got a shade of the Agrax shade over the yellow. And later on today I'll be putting a shade of Agrax shade over the red as well. You don't have to do it that way, but in the Citadel way of doing it, what they're saying is, let's say, this part is yellow. If you paint this yellow part just Avalan Sunset, the idea is that you do it's not actually necessarily going to be Avalan Sunset at the end, or it might be. But what you do is you paint it Avalan Sunset, then you would apply a shade, and the shade would darken the whole colour down, and it would also go into all the recesses. And then what you do is, when you layer painting back, especially on figures, you would layer paint back with a lighter colour, but you wouldn't paint the whole thing. You wouldn't just get I wouldn't just do Avalan Sunset and then a shade and then paint it with another yellow completely, because you're losing all the dark bits. The point of the shade is to darken everything and give you some recess, some shaded recesses. So what you're doing is you're painting the yellow colour and then darkening it to go into all the recesses. Then you're building the light colours back up again on the raised areas. Now on this is not such a good example. Think of it more on, have I got a figure I can show you? I haven't really got a figure I can show you, but painted. But imagine like you're painting a figure with, say, trousers or clothing. You paint, say, you might paint the trouser legs, say, a sand colour. Then you'll shade it with a brown shade, like Agraxur shade. That makes all the recesses darker and browner. So you've now created the darker areas where the creases are. Then you can leave it like that, but if you want to build up the highlights even more, you then go over the highlights, the raised areas, getting lighter and lighter each time with each layer colour, but staying away from the dark recesses that have been shaded. So what you have now, instead of just having a flat colour, you have a flat colour with some shading in the creases, like in all these little creases and folds, and then the light areas, the raised areas, you're building up with. You might start with, let's say you might paint this. You might paint my hand Avalanche Sunset. Then you shade it with Agraxur shade, so all these little recesses go dark. Then you might paint it again with Avalanche Sunset, but you're staying away from all these recessed areas. You're not painting over those, you're just painting over the areas where you want there to be no shade. And then you do a lighter colour again, but you go a smaller area and more towards the raised parts. And then a lighter colour again, just on the most extreme raised creases. You start dark and you work your way up to the light. That's how it works. So the shade is there to put the darkness into the recessed areas, and then the lighter layer colours bring it back. The first colour you start with, the first base paint, is really just there to get the colour down that you're going to start from. The layer paints on top, depending on what you're doing, will be a lot less applied because they're really going on. Let's say clothing's the best example. The shade goes into the recesses of crease. The layer paints that go on top then go onto the top of that crease to bring out the edges. Go and watch any of the Warhammer TV videos where they're painting, like for example, Tempestus Scions is a good one, where he paints the legs on the Tempestus Scions. Duncan paints. So that's a creamy colour. That'll give you an exact idea. Whenever they paint a cloak, it's on cloth and material that's the best way to see the whole point of that technique. But it's also a good way to, if something's supposed to be a colour, like, you know, Mephiston red, you want to make some areas darker and some areas lighter than just the Mephiston red. You don't want it just to be Mephiston red, because that's boring. That's just like, you're not painting then. If this was a thing, if I just painted something that pink colour, it would just be that pink colour. But if I apply a shade and then highlights over the top of the raised areas, you've then got a variation between the pink, you've got some darker areas where the shade settled, and you've got some lighter areas where you've put layer paints on top. So it's all about, you're exaggerating the contrast of light and dark in small, because in real life, of course, you actually have light to create shadows, like all these little crinkles on my gloves. You can see here, there's like a dark blue colour there, there's a light blue colour here, that bit's quite light. You're reproducing that in miniature, so what you're doing is you might paint this a light blue colour, you use a dark blue shade to get all these darker areas, you use a lighter colour to get the highlight areas, and you'll do 2 or 3 different highlight colours, getting smaller and smaller each time, covering a smaller and smaller area to artificially build up that contrast between light and dark. Because if you just paint a figure in flat colours and stick a light on top, it looks terrible. You want to recreate that depth, so to give you that variation. So there are times when you can put shades on afterwards. You can also use shades for like weathering effects. If this was a statue, I might paint it. And here's a question that somebody asked earlier on about how to paint stone. If this was, say, a stone statue, I might paint it a grey colour. Imagine it was a statue of a Space Marine. I paint it a grey colour. Then I'll give it a couple of shades of, say, null oil to darken down the recesses. I'd give it a couple of shades of, say, a green colour and a brown colour, like Agraxur shade, and some of the green colours to make it look like earthy, and like rocks have that green colour to them as well, where moss grows and lichen, so green and brown. So I'm using one shade to give dark shadows, the black, the null oil. I'm using 2 other shades, the brown and the green, to give that kind of colour texture. And then I dry brush over the top with some lighter colours to bring back the highlights and give it that kind of rocky, rough texture. So they're using shades for shadows and for colour. So you can use them for a lot of things. It's just, that's only if you're following the Games Workshop way of painting. You can paint things however you want, but it is a good way. The way they teach on Warhammer TV is a great way to start, to get yourself started. And it basically is base colour, it's primer, always primer, base colour, shade, and then layers on top. You'll find your own way of doing it. I started that way, but I've kind of moved away from that a little bit somehow. I move away from that in my own way, and I do different things sometimes. Sometimes I follow it. I don't do edge highlights for a start, so I don't do those bits. He's definitely got a bee up his backside today, Chris. I think we're getting to him. He says, I'm very confused. There's been far too much work going on. Oh, yes. I must be ill because I'm doing all the work. Let's have a quick look at the chat. Fox Fort, that damned advert for Wonky Donkeys is on the televisual box again. I don't know what this advert is. To me, Wonky Donkeys was something on some rubbish ITV nonsense children's programme, wasn't it? Right, let's go back to chat. Where are we up to? It's Sunday, Fox is to blame. Monday, Ted is at fault. Thursday's Chris is. Yes. Where are we? Question: what is the best way to paint a rocket blast of a Space Marine rocket launcher dude? Says Jamie. Do you mean like the blast where a rocket may have impacted on armour? Or do you mean like, is it the guy that's got the rocket and the rocket's actually launching? And you've got that kind of pretend smoke coming from the rocket muzzle, the rocket engine to the muzzle of the rocket launcher? Is it the guy with the over-the-shoulder rocket thing? In which case, if it's like the plastic, if it's the moulded in cloud, I've never done one, but I've seen people do it. Mostly it's just greys and whites, but then as you get towards the rocket engine of the missile, you can do some go through you want to go from, how do you do it now? It's trying to think of how it looks, because if you look, you've got the rocket motor at one end where it's going to be almost white hot, and then that will fade through red and yellow to then a sort of brown carbonised smoky colour, but through whites and greys. It's kind of hard to explain. You want to start at the muzzle end of the weapon, you want sort of grey colour, and at the rocket end of the missile you want, assuming it's got a rocket motor in it, you want kind of the heat effect. It's heat at one end and cold smoke at the other. I've never done one there, so I can't really say how I would actually do it. Well, it could just be the kind of rocket where it's just a puff of like white cloudy smoke and not actual combustion smoke. So it depends, I suppose. I don't know. Anybody in chat, help me out here. People are talking about Kill La Kill and Girls and Panzer. Also drink a lot of litre of coffee, says Jamie. That helps with the chipping. It certainly does. Yeah. I was always fascinated by Necrons in Warhammer 40k, says Bryce. If you're just starting out in the painting, even if you're not going to play the game, if you're just starting out, Necrons are the easiest thing to paint. Because it literally is. Prime it with lead belcher. Give it 1 or 2 coats of Null Oil, maybe a coat of Agrax Surshade if you want them to look a bit old. And dry brush them with Necron Compound. Done. That's it. If you want to do the absolute minimum way of doing them, lead belcher spray, a shade or 2 Null Oil or Agrax, dry brush with Necron Compound, and then you can paint on the glowy bits. Done. They're the easiest things to paint in all of Warhammer. La 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 la. We Aussies call them butcher birds as they're merely noisemakers, not true magpies, says Mordracker. I think, don't you just call them, there's a lot of other things you call them as well because they attack you. We don't. So that's the difference. Your magpies are dangerous. Our magpies are kind of cool. Our magpies don't attack us. They're quite clever as well. They are quite smart. I've seen them doing stuff, trying to get into the bird feeders. They're quite smart birds. I like them. One of them in the garden. It's got this big long tail. They're like black and white, like the Australian ones, but they're more like our magpies are corvids. They're members of the crow family. They're not. I think your magpies are a totally different family of birds. But magpies over here, the European ones, they're corvids. They're members of the crow family. So they're quite smart. But one of them it's got beautiful black feathers on its back. It's got this long, like, clutch of tail feathers, really long tail feathers. But they're beautiful because they're all iridescent. So whenever it's sat on the feeder, it's got the black feathers on its chest, on its head and stuff. And it's got these long tail feathers sticking out the back with this beautiful iridescent sheen of like greens and purples as it moves around. It's quite fascinating to watch. These gorgeous tail feathers. Let me zoom out a bit. Hang on, let me zoom out a little bit. I don't need to be zoomed in all the way now. But yeah, I like magpies. They're kind of cool. Entropy Chaos. Blood for the blood god, says Sergeant Bones. Got to go for a while. Dinner is on the table, says Jamie. Thanks for coming in, Jamie. You'll be eating your tea now anyway, so. What colours do you find yourself using brown, dark brown for panel lining on? Asks Bryce. I'm guessing tans and sandy colours, but I've also heard they work well on reds. Oh, I see what you mean. If I've got a brown panel line colour, you can use it on anything. If I've got, say, if I'm doing a gunpla and it's got white armour, I will never use black panel liner. If ever you're building something, try and avoid using actual straight up black panel liners or panel line washes, because they are really extreme. If it's like white armour, you can use greys and musty colours. One of my favourite, or some of my favourite colours to use for panel lining are things like road grime, engine grime, those kind of like browny, greeny, grimy colours. Because to me, if I'm doing a panel lining, it's because there's gunk and grime in the gap. If you're doing a nice clean vehicle or Gundam or whatever, you wouldn't do that. But for me, because it's supposed to be grime and dirt in there, I like to use brown, earthy tones rather than blacks and blues with brown, earthy tones. Can Citadel shades be used with Bandai plastic, or does it cause damage, says Clarky? No, there's nothing that Citadel make that would damage your Bandai plastic at all. The only thing to be aware of with shades, and if you look on my Cesabi, it's all the shading was done with Citadel shades. They are safe because they are just water based. The only thing to be aware of is that shades are obviously quite thick and gloopy compared to just washes. So if you're making a gunpla and you want it to be posable, like all the arms and joints working, don't go in and have all the bits and shade them and paint them and everything and then try and put them together, because you might find the shades gunk up some of the joints. So go careful. It's not going to do any harm, but it might jam up some of your joints if you want the thing to be posable. But no, absolutely fine. Nothing in Citadel will harm your Bandai. The only thing that's going to harm Bandai plastics is thinners. Any kind of solvent-based thinners, alcohol-based thinners, anything that isn't basically just water or glaze medium. So Mr. Hobby thinners, any acrylic paint thinners that aren't just water, white spirit, solvents, alcohols, airbrush cleaner, anything like that that's got solvents in it, that will potentially weaken the plastic and it'll make it break. If it's under pressure, like in a joint, it might go crack. A bit like the entire knee joint of my Mega Science RX-78-2, which fell apart and went crumble and just crumbled into pieces. I'd fixed it in the end, but I had to re-glue it all together. But it just literally went and just fell apart because I'd done some thinned enamels, like enamel panel line washes. They're also basically just thinned enamel paint, so it's enamel paint with thinners in it. So again, you're just washing it in thinners. So anything like that, you can't use anything like that basically. Tamiya Smoke thinned with Tamiya, not X20A, X20A thinners. No, it's alcohol-based thinners. It'll eat it alive. So yeah, you've got to be careful. I haven't figured out yet how I'm going to do the weathering on my Perfect Grey Millennium Falcon, because I can't just use Tamiya Smoke thinned down, which is what I used to do on the Falcons. Doodle-doo. Ray says, wow, great, thank you, but I don't know what for. Thanks, Fox. What did I do? Trying my hand at moulding a pot using Oyumaru. See how it goes. I don't know what that is. Paul de Tomas says, whew, field supervisor was just here, no problems. Oh yeah, you work, aren't you? How's the factory? Is all good? Right, so it's 5:15. Right, what I'm going to do, because now basically my next step is to do lots and lots of this chipping. You've seen me do a bit of it. Lots of chipping now. And I don't really want to sit here for the next 45 minutes just happily getting on with that and ignoring you guys. So what I'll do, I'll probably call it a show there, because it's not going to be interesting stuff for you to watch, and I can't really do a lot of stuff while I'm painting it. So I'm going to go and crack on and get all the chipping done. Basically, I'm going to do it. All the yellow is going to get the same process that I did here, with the yellow and the grey. All the red is going to get the same process again, but using that pink colour first. What was it? Full grim pink. And then the dark grey again. Exactly the same. And keeping an eye open for things like, for example, if I've got like a line of paint chips that goes across that face there, I'll do the line of paint chips in yellow up to that point, and then I'll carry them on in the red. So where you've got two different colours, for example, on here, if I have a scratch going across his pauldron, it will be a scratch in pink for that bit, and then I'd swap to yellows for that bit, and then pink again for the other red bit. So keep in mind what the colour underneath. Sometimes a scratch, don't keep your scratch local to one colour. Sometimes it will go across different colours. I'm not doing it onto the metallics because they're bare metal. They don't scratch. Not the same way anyway. So The black bits I won't do because I'm keeping that little grip there on the gun to be more like perhaps rubberized or rubber coated. It's like a pump action grip perhaps in my mind. So I'm going to leave that. That might have some weathering on it, but it's not going to have paint chipping on it because it's like maybe bare rubber. And same with the undersuit, the joints. They're not chipped because they're going to be rubbery type stuff. So I'll probably go away and get that done. I'm not going to be afraid to go over the beautiful faces that I've painted. I'm really quite pleased with that. I'm quite pleased that not only did I freehand that circle and it came out looking all right. It's not a perfect circle, but it's much better than I thought it was. Not only did it come out looking all right, I did it live on telly as well. I'm there thinking, this morning I'm there thinking, oh God, I've got to paint this thing on. How the hell? Oh, I mean, trust me, if it was a real neat proper chapter marking like that Maltese cross of the Templars or some of the other ones that are quite complicated, even like the Space Wolves wolf head, which I don't even get decals for, but anything like that where it's complicated and you've got to have neat, crisp... Yeah, I can't do that. I can't even paint an arrow. But where it's this and it's supposed to have that kind of stylized look and I can tidy it up, it looks all right. I'm gutted that came out fuzzy. But I think once it's been varnished over and once it's, got a bit of varnish on it and it's got some weathering and stuff, I don't like the fact it's fuzzy around the edge, but there really is nothing I can do about that because it's the texture in the paint. So, yeah. So I'll put that on there. Let's look at chat. He's coming on now, so I'll go and get that done because there's no point me sitting here for another hour and a half while you just sit there twiddling your thumbs. Trying to decide on my next master grade kit, says Bryce. I would strongly recommend, if you haven't tried one, I mean, I love a nice Strike. Any of the Strike Gundam kits, it's always a winner. Strike is a beautiful kit, and the Strike is a brilliant kit for painting as well because it goes together so nicely. However, I would recommend, if you want a really nice looking, unusual kit, the Master Grade Sinanju Stein is a beautiful kit. I think it's got the wrong head on it because it's a fantastic looking mobile suit, but the head doesn't really fit. The head doesn't really work. I mean, it fits, it just doesn't work. The theme, I know the whole point, I know why it looks like it does, but it doesn't really, it doesn't really fit for me. The Sinanju Stein is a really good build, or, I haven't built it yet, but I would say, the Gyara Doga. I've built the high grade Gyara Zulu. I really wish they'd do a master grade Gyara Zulu. The master grade Gyara Doga, because it looks a bit like a space Nazi. Or any Zaku. Zaku's are always fun to build. If you like doing weathering, I always imagine Zaku's like the mass produced. They're the equivalent. I always say it's like the equivalent of a crappy Russian tank in World War II. All the German and Allied tanks were carefully built and manufactured, but the Russian tanks was churned out of a tractor factory, and therefore they rusted as soon as they got off the production floor, and they fell apart halfway down the road. So they were beaten and battered and weathered by the time they got to the soldiers. So yeah, they're great for that. So I always like to weather those. But definitely a Zaku. I personally would say a Strike of some sort. I would say do not get the Destiny. Any of the Destiny Gundams, they're horrible. They're horrible. Oh, they look fantastic with the coloured wings, especially the full blast mode Destiny. Looks fantastic, but to build them, not fun. The build, the painting, there's just no. The hips are too loose. They don't really work. The legs don't stay where you put them. For some reason, I've built 2 of them now, and there's just something about the way they go together and the way you have to paint them that just doesn't sit with me at all. Whereas I can build a Strike all day long quite happily, thank you very much. There's nothing about the Destiny Gundam that makes me want to ever build one again. I don't know why. I built 2 and I hated both of them. So he says, I was thinking about the MS06J Zaku 2, but the Gyara Doga was on my list as well. The Doga is quite a simple build. It's not a complicated build. I've been through this. I was gifted one very kindly by, let me see who it's from. I've written it down in the box, but it might be facing the wrong way. It was sent to me by... Yes, it's fair. I've written the name on the box and it's on the side that's against the wall. Whoever it was that sent it to me, thank you very much. It might have been... Who was it now? Oh, God. It might have been Si. I don't know. Was it you, Si? I can't remember now. Somebody sent me a load of them anyway. It's a nice big kit, but it's not complicated. It's more like a advanced HG. It's not got a massive inner frame. It's got the rubbishy rubber tubes, but there you go. What have I missed, asked Jamie? Not a lot, dude. I've just been talking, mostly. I've been doing some chippage. I don't know if you were watching when we were doing the paint chipping, so I've done lots of chipping on the backpack, showing how I was doing that. I'm going to call the show now, though, because I'm just going to go off and do lots more chipping, which is boring for you guys. But yes, the Gyara Doga, it's got a lot of potential for putting there's not a lot of panel lining on it, so there's a lot of potential for adding your own panel lines. But Zaku's always a winner because you can weather that. RJC Reese is in. RJC Models Official says, afternoon Fox, how are you, mate? I am fine, thank you, Reese. How you doing, buddy? Paul says, all is good, Fox. Oyamaru is the thermoplastic like blue stuff. Put it in hot water, soften it, press pot into it, let it cool, and bam, you have a mould of the pot. Oh yeah, I know the stuff you mean. Cool. Aidan Jones asked, didn't Bandai and Games Workshop collaborate and create a Space Marine Gunpla Gundam thing? I believe it's £75. Yes, it was made available for pre-order yesterday. I was really excited for it until they revealed it was an action figure. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, it's still cool. Don't get me wrong. I might get one next year then. My plan was at first, when I thought it was a kit, I was going to snap one up. Then when I realised it was an action figure, I'm not into action figure. I don't really care about action figures. So I'm like, okay, well, I've no interest in one for myself. I might get one next year and paint it up and sell it. Get a couple to build up and to paint up and sell. That'd be a nice little bit of income for me if I make a couple in a few different chapters that aren't Ultramarines. Maybe add some plastic card markings and bits to them, stuff like that. That would have been fun. However, then they said last week, it's a limited run of 9,000. And they're not being produced until, and you've got to pre-order it and pay for it. And then as soon as we've got all 9,000 ordered, we'll send them off for production, and you'll get them next year sometime. So what they're basically doing is, instead of just making this action figure, it's a bit like the Spirit, the Tamashii Spirit things that the Bandai do. These are some fantastic quality like action figures. And it is still cool, don't get me wrong. I'm just not a big action figure kind of guy. It looks fantastic, but you have to basically, if you want one, you have to go either to your local store now or to the Games Workshop website now and pre-order it, because they're only going to do 9,000. And if as soon as 9,000 have been pre-ordered, that's it. And I know people have ordered like 10 or more. Mentioning no names, but you know who you are. You know who you are. So they're only going to do 9,000. So if you want one, you have to go and order it now. Stop watching this. Go to the Games Workshop website. Do it. Do it now. Do it now. Don't even think about it. I'm like, oh, in that case, no, because like I say, if it was just a normal action figure being made, I probably would have got one maybe next year when I've got a bit more time. I might have got a couple, made some insignia markings out of plastic card, and maybe made a couple of accessories and things to stick on them out of plastic card and bits and bobs, and kit bash some bits, repainted them, put them in a fixed pose, repainted them, and sold them. And I might have got, I would have got a nice tiny profit for that. I could buy one for 75 quid. I could sell it for 250, 300 quid painted up, and that'd be quite nice. But now it's limited run of 9,000. You might think, okay, well, I could get one and I could sell it for twice as much. Yeah, but no, yeah, it's not the kind of thing I've got time to do now. It's not the kind of thing action figures aren't my thing, so I can't really justify spending 75 quid on that now. So yeah, but yeah, they are cool. But if you want one, you really have to go and do it now on their website. If they've got them left, they might have already ordered out. I don't know. It's pre-order only. Basically, it sounds like they're going to send them off to Bandai in December, January, I think, and then get them put in for production next year. And it'll be within the first quarter, I think, next year that you'll get them. The thing that gets me, though, is, here's some maths for you. Here's some maths. This is what I don't get. This is what I don't get. Right. Maths time. Where's my calculator? Let me go into that. Right, so it's 9,000 times £75 is £675,000. Now, you are not telling me that Bandai will have spent hundreds of man hours designing, concepting, and making moulds for these figures to only make 9,000 and only that are going to make a profit of 675 grand. Because let's assume that Games Workshop are going to make a profit off that. That means that maybe perhaps you might say, okay, well, if they make 9,000, they've got to make a profit, so maybe the total cost for that is 500 grand, and then Games Workshop make 175 grand on top. No. There's no way that Bandai spends all those man hours tooling, designing, getting it in CAD, making the molds. Molds, if you look at the cost of a tool for a model kit, by a tool I mean the mold, the thing that the plastic is made out of. If you look at a tool for a model kit, I remember reading somewhere that Fine Molds had a tool for a 1/350th. Hang on, I forgot my passcode now. Hang on. I can't use my thumbprint. I'm trying to get back into my iPad for the chat, and I can't use my thumbprint. Yeah, it was a video, and it was showing Fine Molds, and it showed the tool for just 2, I think, sprues from their 1/350th Battleship Yamato kit. And it said, I remember it saying somewhere in the text that tool was worth about $250,000. That's for one single mould. So there's no way that Games Workshop, I mean, I could be wrong, but there's no way they're going to say, right, we're going to make 675 grand, which is going to cover the cost of tooling and production and design and manufacturing and packaging, and somebody has to sit there and build and put the whole thing together, and then they've got to paint them as well. No. I think, this is only my opinion, I have no inside information, but my opinion is they do this now, they do 9,000 of them, they sell out because everybody wants one, they create this false demand, and then in a year's time they say, you know what, we're going to do another run of those Space Marine figures, we're going to do another 9,000, yeah, of course they are, because I think what's happened, again, I could be wrong, I could be completely wrong here, I reckon they have paid up front for Bandai to do the design and tooling. And they've basically paid for a load of molds to be made. And I think what they're doing is they've paid for that up front out of their own pocket. I could be wrong. I think they've paid for all that. Because I think you're talking many, many hundreds of thousands, if not at least $1 million plus for that. You can't just, it's not going to be 200 or 300 grand for all that. You can't do that. I think they've paid up front to have the tools and the dies made. And I think what they're doing is they then sell them to you at 75 quid, they make 675 grand, and I think some of that then pays for Bandai to produce them, and they make a little bit of profit on top. But then that also means that Bandai have in their storehouse, under the floor, under all the machines, all the printing machines and all the stuff's underneath, they have all the dies and tools there, and then Bandai at any time can say, can you do us another 9,000? Can you do us 10,000? Can you do another 500 of these, please? And they just pay for that on spec. So I think that, I could be wrong, I mean, I could be talking at my arse, I don't know the facts, I don't know how these things really work, but in my mind, I think they've paid for all that, and they're just making a little bit of money on the figures, and if it works well, they might put it into production a bit more. I think it's a test to see how well they sell. I think they'll bite the bullet and pay for the production, because once the tools are made, once the molds are made, they're in gravy. They can have them painted however they want. They can make 1 million of them. They can make 5 of them. They just need to pay Bandai each time. So I think that's what they've done. I think that. I could be wrong. Like I said, I've got no inside knowledge here. So I think we'll see them again. Maybe not for a year, but I don't think they're going to be 9,000 and that's it forever, because there's no way Bandai go to all the effort. They'll get paid, they don't care, but there's no way they go to all that effort to make these things and then they make 9,000 of them. Let's have a look. Bryce says, I've done the MGOZ 13MS Epion and the MG GX 9901DX, but only recently have I been diving deep into painting my Gunpla. Yes, it's good fun, but I would strongly recommend, if you're going to fully paint a Gunpla, don't worry about posing it. Just glue all those joints together, glue the inner frame into the pose you want, then it makes painting a lot easier. I've stopped doing painted posable Gunpla now because it's a living nightmare. I just build the frame, paint the frame, stick the armour on. There you go, done. And we paint the armour as well. The shelf queen, you never pose them anyway. What is that lighting setup I'm seeing reflected in Fox's tablet? I mean that up there. It's chaotic, isn't it? It's just LED strips, just all dangled above. I've got 2 of them. It's just randomly dangled above, basically, in my usual chaotic way. 30% margins are standard in the manufacturing industry, which may seem like a lot, but the 30% covers overhead, labour, R&D, etc. Yeah, and I know the 30% is regular, but even so, knowing what Bandai are like for, working with other people and how hard they are to work with, there's no way that 675 grand is enough to pay for A, profit for Games Workshop, and B, pay for all the R&D, design and manufacturing, painting, assembly and shipping and all that. No, that's not enough. That's not enough. If you're a little tiny company that makes, like, you know, some of these little Polish companies that make little limited run model kits and stuff, you know, they're tiny. They're tiny little companies. They might do little runs like that, and you might just get away with it because they're tiny. No, it's not. They might use really old moulding equipment that they borrow or something, or they might have some really old printing equipment that they can use. Bandai use the latest tech. There's no way you could give Bandai 500 grand and get 9,000 articulated Space Marine figures. If you were to phone up Bandai now and say, I want you to design these figures for me, print them, make them, they'd be like, that'll be many, many, many monies, please. Yes. So I think we'll see them ourselves. Anyway, Print Guru says the next one will likely be a grey version that you can paint yourself. I spoke to the Bandai designer of this at Warhammer Fest, and he intimated that if sold well, a paint your own would follow. Now that would be something I would get into. I do think they will. I think I agree, and I've had conversations with people that say the same thing. I think it's a test, it's a trial. I think they've probably covered the costs out of their own pocket because they're not exactly poor. I think they've probably taken the risk and covered the costs out of their own pocket for the initial setup and production. I think they'll make a little bit of profit off the 675 grand. Take out, obviously, got shipping and stuff like that and everything else. I think they'll make a little bit of profit on that, but I think they're really just doing this to see if it's successful. And if it is, maybe we'll see him again. Because I wonder, like with these things, these Funko Pops, I don't think these sold that well because these suddenly appeared. I don't know anybody who actually likes Funko Pop. Everybody I know who just hates Funko Pops. But anyway, I know they do sell well, but I don't know how well they sold because these appeared and they were supposed to be in-store only. It says on the box, in-store only. Yet you can buy them online. So I think they had a load. Again, I could be wrong. My imagination, they did a thing with Funko Pops. They had 10 billion of these made and they didn't sell that well. And that's why they suddenly said, no, we're going to sell them on the website. So I think they're being a bit more cautious with these big figures. They're saying, let's just see how it goes. If it's popular, we'll maybe bring it back. I think we will. So I'm not too stressed that I'm not getting one. But I'm not going to pop out 75 quid now at this time of year. I've got too many other things to be spending money on at the minute. Reason for limited edition runs is mainly due to production schedules. All toy manufacturers probably use 2 to 3 suppliers for their figures, so the production schedule may only allow a few. There is that as well. Bandai do have quite tight production schedules. It's often been said that, you know, they know 3 or 4 years in advance what kits they'll be producing. And they do mean like runs. That's why, for example, when you get like Bandai water slide decals, they reproduce them once every 5 years. Or some of the kits that come out, they re-release them every few years because they'll make an X number of whatever kit, and then if they haven't redesigned it 5 years down the line, they'll release it again at X number of them. Mr. Happy says, time to troll. Okay. And then doesn't. Jimmy Bones says, I might paint my DIY Space Marine the Astra Militarum Cadian uniform and armour colours. Cool. My guess is they'll just do different chapters for future production runs. Yeah, true. Afternoon all, what have I missed, says Red Len 08. Busy painting the new man cave. Oh, you're all getting man caves. I'm so jealous. I haven't got a man cave. I've got this desk in this room. I want a man cave. I want to win the lottery so I can get my garage knocked down and get it rebuilt as a proper man cave with central heating and lighting and internet and workbench and filming area. Chris at Grace Model says, time to sort out food. Catch you later. I will. I'll give you a plug in a second. The sample version they had at Warhammer Fest was an all-gay pre-paint sample, so it's already very doable. Yeah, it was a prototype, wasn't it? Bandai always have a prototype in grey at shows when it's not released yet. It's kind of a thing that they always do. If you go to like the Circa hobby show where they announce their new Gunpla, more often than not, it's just the grey painted prototype. Often the prototypes are actually 3D printed, and if you look at the photographs on the Games Workshop website or on your local store's Facebook page, if you look at the close-ups of the Ultramarine they've got there, you can see the 3D printing lines because Bandai do 3D print they obviously have an industrial 3D printer, not a crappy thing that me or you or I might have. You can see the print lines because it's just a rough prototype print. It's quite interesting because they fully painted it, but it's like it's still not the final production version because they haven't made them yet. That's the whole point. They're going to send them off for production. So that, I think, is probably a 3D industrial print. What colours do you use for heat stress on guns, says Bryce Sigmund. There's a couple of things I can suggest. First of all, when you finish watching this in a minute, if you go to my channel page and click on playlists, there is a playlist, a recent one, which is me doing, it's these Sunday live streams, which is me painting my armatures, and on one of them I show how I paint the heat effects on one of the guns. And it's using lead belcher, it's using I can't remember the colours. There's gold colour, bronze colour. There's using Vallejo metal colour paint and a bit of dry brushing. It's all brushing and dry brushing and shades and Agrax Earth shade. That's one way of doing it. Some people like to use inks though. Like remember when we said earlier on about spraying inks? Some people like to use blue, purple and brown inks. Because inks are transparent. When you spray them on, they're very transparent. So what you can do is you can take a silver object, you can spray it blue, because the colour tends to go, when it's got heat damage, it tends to be black. How does it normally go? Black, purple and blue. It's blue, purple and black. Black at the end where the carbon scrum be. And it tends to be, you can spray that, but you can spray blue ink up to here, then spray purple ink up to here, and then spray black up to there. And because they're inks, they're transparent. You can build them up slowly and they have this beautiful transparent, and because you're going and because you're overlapping them, that much is blue, then that much is purple and that much is black, you get this nice fade between them. That's another way of doing it. You can do it with brush as well, but you get the softest fades with inks. There are other ways of doing it, but those are the only two ways I've ever done it. It is very easy to get wrong though. I've seen a lot of things, I must admit there's a lot of things I've seen where people do that on, say, motorbike exhaust, and you get this like purple striping, and it's like, I know in reality it kind of looks like that, but when you scale it down to model, it just looks kind of dumb. So I've seen it done really badly, I've seen it done really well. But yes, there's play. Go to the armature. I can't remember what the live stream's called. But if somebody watches, if one of the mods could find it on the playlist on my channel and put a link up to it, that'd be brilliant. Thank you very much. It's the Armature live shows. It's only got like 4 episodes. Just these live shows put out into painting the Armature. In the same way, I'll probably separate these out into painting a pop. Right. Anyway, I think that's going to do us. Got sidetracked bigly there. I'm going to leave it there because I've got to go off and do a lot of chipping. Don't forget, of course, later on this evening, 8 PM tonight. This is why Chris had to run off and make his dinner. 8 PM tonight, although I won't be doing this show. Chris does his Warhammer Sunday, or Warhamster Sunday. I need to wipe my nose again. Oh, you know, if I'm sat here working and I've got the lights on, my nose doesn't run. As soon as I turn the camera on, my nose is like a river. Oh. Yeah, so Chris's show tonight on his channel, Gross Models, at 8 PM. Do go along. I'll try and be in the live chat. Don't forget, of course, Monday night, tomorrow night, is me, Chris, and Ted. Everybody loves Ted. And Colin, of course, because Colin's our new boy, for the eModels live show. That's on eModels channel, one of my channel sponsors. There's a link for eModels in the description below the video. They sponsor my channel, so do go and check them out for all your traditional model making needs. Big savings on everything. So we'll be doing the eModels show. I'm hoping to have the next Patreon exclusive episode of the Sazabi build up in the next 2 or 3 days. So that should be coming soon. And I'll see if I can do a behind the scenes sort of 5-minute long video build diary for non-patrons as well. Because we've just been doing lots more on the Sazabi behind the scenes. Doesn't look like I'm doing much because you're not seeing anything, but I am. And then we'll be back again next Sunday for more of this. Don't forget, of course, though, before I do go, first and foremost, do go and join the Model Makers Boom Hut. The link is in the chat somewhere. Somebody can post the link up for me again. Not only have we got George's Sazabi group build still ongoing till November, we also have whatever somebody mentioned earlier on, the Secret Santa. That's going to be a thing, so go and check out the announcement posts for both of those. And don't forget, of course, the channel is sponsored and supported by Goblin Gaming. use the link in the description below this video. Don't just go to the website, use the link that's down there, because that link, not only do you get your massive savings on everything from Games Workshop, Conflict 47, Malifaux and lots of other things, 20% on those three and massive savings on everything else. That link as well tells Goblin that you've come from me, and therefore I make a little tiny bit of income off that. So do go and check that out. The link below, Goblin Gaming, for all your Games Workshop stuff. Anything you need is a lot cheaper. Save yourself a ton of money. They're really good guys. They are awesome. So do go and check those guys out. What else? What else? Or something else? No, can't remember. Yes, if you want to check out who asked me earlier on about some of the Uniposca pens, they are in my Amazon store. So use the link in the description below for my Amazon store. Again, if you're in the UK, if you're in the UK, it helps me out. If you're outside the UK, just go to Amazon. You can use it if you want. Just I don't make anything off it if you're not in the UK, but feel free. Feel free. But anyway, that's going to do us. So thank you very much. Oh, Django says first time there was no sticker giveaway. I totally forgot. I even had them ready. It's a bit late now. I've got to go and do my dinner, but. Sorry, I totally forgot, guys. I had them ready and everything. We'll do them next week. I got so carried away doing paint chipping. I was doing painting and everything. See what happens when I actually do my job and not just sit around on my butt talking to you. I don't know. Anyway, yes, Edward, I will be sending off the blueprints for you probably tomorrow, so you should have them in the next few days. I think it was you that won, wasn't it? I hope it was. I've just said, you know what I mean. Anyway, yes, they should be coming off to you. So until next time, I shall say thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you later on for Chris's live stream. Don't forget, 8 PM, Gross Models. And until then, I shall say, though, take care of yourselves. Go make something awesome. Go be awesome. And until next time, see if I can do it without screwing it up this week. Until next time, adios, amoebas.